Good evening, and welcome to the school committee meeting of Tuesday, June 28, 2022. We have been, like to call the meeting to order. The school committee was in executive session beginning at 5:30, and since right around 6:30 or so, we were having a bit of a reception for our retirees, recognizing those members and employees of the Wakefield Public Schools who are leaving us this year through in the enjoyment of, hopefully enjoyment for retirement. I know the superintendent will speak to that as the meeting goes along. So, in calling the meeting to order, as we always do, please join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Also, I'd like to read the mission statement as we do at the opening of each meeting to remind us of our purpose and mission. The vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident, lifelong learners, who are respectful and caring members of their community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing rich and challenging curriculum, high-quality instruction, and educational experiences that meet their individual needs and interests. Next, item 6 on the agenda. I'd like to call any member of the public who would like to speak to the school committee about any topic, whether it be on the meeting agenda or not. Any member of the public that's here in the studio, please step up. Identify yourself and...
Hi.
Hello.
Hello,
Amy.
I'm Amy Wall. I had a couple of things to bring up tonight. The first one, my daughter did want to come tonight to see... You laughing, Mike?
Nothing.
Okay.
No.
My daughter did want to come tonight to speak. She had sent an email to everybody about her civics project, which was about the 7th grade math to extend it. So she wanted to thank Ms. Lehman and Dr. Piscadlo for sending her some thoughtful letters back, which was really nice.
I thought you meant your other daughter. That's why I was wondering.
Oh, yeah, no, we wouldn't bring her here. And so she just wanted to share her thank you, but she also is questioning if anything is coming from that. So she would like to see if that can be something that can be put on the agenda with an update of where the 7th grade extended math kind of falls and see what's going on with that. So that's one part. The second part, I know that the logo is getting moved to the fall now. I had a few concerns that I just wanted to share with everybody. I know we can't have a back and forth, but just wanted to put a couple of things out there. So we got the letter today. I'm not sure who has seen it or who has not, but from Sarah Spatafor about the current logo that's being used, that it seems like in her suggestion, it doesn't seem like it's maybe the best idea to use that logo. I'm sure there's going to be more discussion about that. I myself have reached out to Ohio State University. I'm waiting for their trademark attorney to return my phone call. They're having some transitions with people leaving and coming back, so I'm just waiting for the new person that's coming in, I think starting next week, to call me back and discuss that with me personally, because I'd like to do my own research on that. As far as the logo goes that we're using now, the one, it was option 2 for those that don't remember, the W with the Warriors written through it. According to the policy that we put in place for coming up with a new logo, that logo was never used. I mean, was never voted on or approved or anything. So right now we're kind of in a violation of the policy that we created. So I'm suggesting a cease and desist on that logo being used right now for anything going forward until something has been determined, a logo that is going to be used. So my suggestions for moving forward, I was a little upset that at the last meeting I had specifically asked that we would have an email sent to us from the committee, which nothing was sent to us. I specifically reached out for an email to have the presentation that was shown last time be presented to us prior to the meeting, which never happened. It still has never happened. And then that we're going to meet as a group, and that has not happened. This has kind of been par for the course going along. I know a lot of you know how upset I've been about this whole thing. Regardless, it has nothing to do with the logo itself. It has to do with the process that's been happening, or the lack thereof, and the lack of transparency that's been happening. So Again, my suggestions, one would be a cease and desist on the logo that we're currently using until we have more information on it. Again, it's not something that's been approved, even for the interim. If it's something that everybody wants to put on the table and vote on in 2 weeks, or, 2 weeks from that day, and you have an interim one, that's fine, but it has to be about process. We can't just make a policy and then not follow policy. That's not how life works. My other suggestions would be to do a townwide contest. I thought that was something that we kind of discussed about, not just having the committee members drawing things, but open it up to the whole community. Have people submit them, and then the committee will take a look at all of the options and say, okay, these are the best 3, now we're going to present these to Doug. I think that having the group that we have, which is great, and everybody worked well together, and I thought it was really great. But I think there's probably more ideas out there that we're not getting after. I believe it was the principal that maybe said that we couldn't do a survey for the kids in that 2-week time frame. I think that's a bad excuse. We pushed all this through. We're using now the excuse of the kids were in finals, and we didn't want to give them a survey that would have taken them probably 60 seconds to fill out. But it was such a rush to push it through when our kids weren't even in class. At that point, it was a main thing to push through. And now when another suggestion comes up that goes against what she feels that she wants to do, it's radio silence, and it's not sitting well with me. My other suggestion would be that the committee meet, not this committee, the logo committee, meet within the next 2 weeks so that we can discuss a plan. So I don't know, Doug, if that's something that you would spearhead, but it's not something I'm stepping away from. Whatever the logo is going to be, it's going to be, but I want it done properly. I want the process to be followed through properly, and I'm going to be back every meeting talking about it if what was said was going to be done is not being done. So I'm just going to be that squeaky wheel until I get my oil. So that's all I have for tonight. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. I love the shirt too.
Any other members of the public wish to address the committee? Do we have anyone on Zoom with us? No? Okay. Okay, thank you. Item number 7, Student Advisory Council being, this time of the year, we do not have Student Advisory Council members with us tonight. So, moving on, item 8, the consent agenda. We have a motion.
Move that the school committee approve the minutes of the May 24, 2022 and the June 14, 2022 school committee meetings as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Passes unanimously. It is just moments before 7:45. As we know, we have our school choice hearing tonight. We should actually start that on time, notwithstanding a couple of minutes. So why don't I, if I could, I'll take the liberty of hopping ahead to item 10B, Chair's discussion, and just introduce the topic around some planning and professional development over the summer. What I would like for us to consider doing, and I'll push out a poll or a doodle of some kind to see if we can land on a date that may work between July and August. And we have typically, the school committee has typically over the years had a planning meeting or a retreat of some kind. Sometimes it's been as late as November, December. It's been a little haphazard just because of scheduling. So I'd like to try to see if we may be able to find a convenient day and time and sort of block of hours to get together over the summer. So really before the school year starts, to come up with some goals for the committee, some goals from the administration. And when Amy and I talked about this a couple weeks ago now, we thought maybe even some goals that the committee might be able to share with the subcommittees. So there's some subcommittee work at the sort of the beginning of the year that sort of may have some weeks in life, ahead of it. We think that might be a nice thing for the, what are some expectations that the full committee has of each of the subcommittees for the following year. So anyway, so those are some of the topics. On the doodle that I'll push out, we probably want to have something that's, in the range of a decent time, not an 8-hour thing, but also not an hour and a half thing, so maybe 3 or 4 hours. Would we like to do an evening, 6 to 10, 5 to 9? Would we like to do a Saturday morning? So those are the things that I'm going to push out, and hopefully, if people are completely out of town, then let's make sure that, when we look over the data that's back, we won't schedule that. But if it's just sort of inconvenient, we may be asking folks to sort of see if they can rearrange because we don't want to do something that not everyone's present. So if anyone has any thoughts to share now, they're certainly welcome to. But that's sort of what that Amy and I have been talking about for trying to pull something together for some time over the summer. Okay? And how about that? It's 7:45.
Perfect.
So I would call the meeting to order, a public hearing on school choice. There is a motion.
Move that the school committee enter into the public hearing on school choice.
Second.
Second, this needs to be a roll call vote. Judy?
Mr. Fontanella?
Could you repeat the motion?
Oh, really?
It's a motion to go into to a
to
public
go
hearing
in,
on the
yes.
purpose of school choice.
I'm sorry, I thought this was the vote for a second, and I did not know if I was voting yes or no. Yes, I apologize.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes, yep.
Mr. Ingles?
Yes.
Ms. Lehman?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Ms. Colleran?
Yes.
Mr. Piscadlo?
Yes.
Okay, so we are now in public hearing, the annual public hearing that the school committee has under state law required by all school districts in the Commonwealth to have a public discussion, as much as it may or may not be, regarding the opening of the school ranks for non-resident students under the school choice law. Wakefield Public Schools has never has never had actually taken advantage of opening such doors to non-residents under the school choice law. That doesn't mean that we can't do so in the future. So what I would like to do, I'd like to ask the superintendent to make any comments he may have, and certainly make a recommendation, and allow any member of the public who may be joining us in the studio, or certainly via Zoom, to provide any comment that they may have. Dr. Lyons.
Thank you. So this is a requirement under Mass General Law, Chapter 76, Section 12B. It's an annual discussion where all school committees in the Commonwealth are responsible for taking up this conversation and for voting. As Tom has said, Wakefield has not participated in school choice. And the reason we have not in the past is really due to just really size of our schools. We don't have a lot of open seats, and there's not a lot of open seats with really any continuity, right? And so schools and districts have a right, if they are going to participate in school choice, to say, for example, they can designate a grade span, or a middle school, or, and so, with our class sizes the way they are, and with the kind of emerging needs of our students, especially post-pandemic, I think at this point I would say the needs of our students in district really need to be a focus for us, and based on our class sizes and how policy really dictates that, I don't feel like we have the space to open up our district for school choice. The benefit is nominal, although it is a benefit, and that's a very real thing that needs to be weighed on balance and discussed openly. But it is my recommendation to the committee that Wakefield not participate in the 2022-2023 school year, not participate in inter-school choice, in inter-district school choice. Yeah,
What
Mike.
would the benefit be, Doug?
It's about $7,000 per student, Michael.
And second question is, if we ever were to consider it,
Yes.
would it be likely we would consider it with a kindergarten class that had low enrollment versus starting at sixth grade or something of that? sort?
Well,
Is
you
it
know,
all or nothing, or how?
It's not all or nothing, and you
Okay.
can specify a grade level, and I understand the question about trying to get kids in early. But, K is often our really our most vulnerable space, right? So our class sizes at that level are really, really critical, and the kind of the changing needs of our students right now, currently, I would say, I would not suggest that we select K as an incoming space, just because I think the class sizes and the ratios that we have are pretty competitive, and we want to, when I say competitive, favorable to the teachers, to be able to meet the needs of each student in their space or in their classes. So for those reasons, I would say maybe not K.
Well, we'd
if we
have
were
to
gonna
have
do
an
it.
abnormally small class size to even consider it, or
Yeah.
enrollment in a particular year. Is that fair?
That is fair. That is
Yeah.
fair.
Only K, if it's low, chances are it will be low when they move to first
Yeah,
and move to second.
yeah,
That's the only
yeah,
reason why I
yeah.
suggested K.
But our ratios in K, by policy are, 22, and in first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, they're 25, as a cap. Not that we want to be at 25, but, there's a possibility there. Yeah.
Thanks.
Stephen, then Kevin?
I'm just curious on enrollment numbers as it related to sort of the pandemic. I feel like there's sort of anecdotally, it seemed as though some people were stepping out of district for a multitude of reasons. Feels like some folks have come back in. Is that a measurable difference, or is it nominal?
We look to be right around where we were pre-pandemic at this point, Stephen. We also just got a NASDAQ enrollment study back, which does a 10-year look ahead, right? So it does a back and ahead, and it is very similar to the MSBA study that was done. So our numbers look to be, the forecasting is it's a forecast, right? And so sometimes we forecast sun and we get rain, right? So we got to be prepared for that. But and one of the questions there is development, right? What do developments look like? How will that affect enrollment? But it looks, based on the algorithms that are used by NASDAQ and by MSBA, that our enrollment is projected to be fairly steady for about the next decade at about 3,500 students, or just shy thereof.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Pretty much the same question. I was just going to ask, how stable has enrollment been over the last 10 years? Has it been pretty
I think
consistent?
It's been pretty consistent, Kevin. We did have like a number of districts during COVID
Right.
with schools in different schedules. Some students were kind of chose private school, some parents chose homeschooling, so enrollment shrunk a little bit. But since we've come back, our numbers have come back up.
The other thing, Doug, is obviously if this new complex goes in at the lake, we don't really know quite yet what that's going to do to our enrollment in schools yet. So to commit ourselves to, this program when we don't know what the impact will be of that construction, assuming it moves forward, is another reason to wait.
It's a real question. It's a real question. And, head of the lake is a question, but also other developments as well, right? And so we have seen other towns where things have been quiet, and then all of a sudden, 25 families move in, and you now have a new group of students with and so that's something that we really need to pay attention to. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for the superintendent or comments in general? Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak about school choice? Amy, want to come back up? Come on. Any members of the community on Zoom who would like to share thoughts about the school choice question? Seeing none, I'm going to say we're ready to call the vote. So there is language. Amy. So it's on this one.
No. All right. Move that the school committee vote to support the superintendent's recommendation to not enlist the Wakefield Public Schools as a school choice district for the school year 2022 to 2023.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call vote. Judy?
Mr. Fontanella,
Yes.
Mr. Boudreau,
Yes.
Mr. Ingles,
Yes.
Ms. Lehman,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Ms. Colleran,
Yes.
Dr. Piscadlo.
Yes.
Very good. Motion passes unanimously. Since this is a single agenda item in public hearing, the motion now to come out of public hearing.
Move that the school committee exit the public hearing on school choice.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Roll call vote to do so. Judy?
Mr. Fontanilla,
Yes.
Mr. Boudreau,
Yes.
Mr. Ingles,
Yes.
Ms. Lehman,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Ms. Colleran,
Yes.
Dr. Piscadlo.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Moving on, the rest of item 10, chairs, comments, and reports. Item 10C, we have been reporting some great progress in the last handful of months on some of the collective bargaining work that's been done really in earnest since December. In January and February, and groups started coming along. We're at a place tonight, and a very good place to report to the community that the labor relations group and negotiating team and the administration have reached tentative agreements with 3 of our collective bargaining groups, which we'd like to bring forward tonight. We're bringing 3 tonight, though, aren't
We're
we?
bringing 3, but we have 4.
We have 4, right. We have 4 tentative agreements, 3 that we're bringing forward tonight. The groups that we're bringing forward tonight, namely Wakefield Education Association, Unit C, WEA Unit C, which is the the para-educators. We are bringing forward tonight the AFSCME group for food service employees and staff. And we're bringing forward tonight the new association for Wakefield Administrators Association. So we're pleased to be able to report that. The committee has been informed and kept informed and providing direction for the last number of months to this work. So with those in mind, we have motions. Amy, there'll be 3 different motions, each group its own motion.
Move that the school committee vote to approve the collective bargaining agreement between the school committee and the Wakefield Education Association, Unit C, for the contract term September 1, 2022 through August 31, 2025, as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Passes unanimously. Next motion, Amy?
Move that the school committee vote to approve the collective bargaining agreement between the school committee and the Wakefield Public Schools Food Service Employees Group of the AFSCME Union for the contract term July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2025, as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
I just have one.
Yes.
Could someone spell out the acronym? I know it's long.
Oh, so
Anyway.
AFSCME is American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Final motion.
Move that the school committee vote to approve the collective bargaining agreement between the school committee and the Wakefield Administrators Association, WAA, for the contract term July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2025, as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Let me just take a moment at this point, really just to thank, obviously, the negotiating teams on both sides, both the administration and the union side, for really what has been a terrific body of work. We have probably spent the most amount of time talking with Unit C, coming from a place that the community really rallied behind. I think this school committee and the school committee prior to us sitting here as 7 were very supportive of some real substantive movement that we were all prepared to make and all very interested in making and supporting the work of our paraeducators and recognizing that work to the best that we could do and moving them forward with benefits as well as compensation that is fair and equitable and recognizable. And I think we've done all those things. I think the community should be pleased and proud of not only our entire staff, but certainly the work that the negotiating teams have done to bring us to this very important point. The fact that we've got 4 contracts settled and 3 of them now just approved prior to the end of the fiscal year, literally prior to the end of the fiscal year is a monumental task. And I think as we hit the July meeting, we'll certainly be looking at a couple other groups as well to approve. So we've really done some terrific work. So I want to thank Dr. Lyons and Ms. Bafagner and their team from the administration side. Certainly thank my colleagues on the Labor Relations Subcommittee for the time and energy that has gone into this. But more importantly than anything that we've done is thanking the employee groups that have done additional work, research, discussions with their peers, negotiations with their peers, all on their own time and all for the benefit of Wakefield, teaching and learning. So I think we've made some really good progress, and I want to just thank everyone for that work. Okay, item 10D. We're prepared this evening. We also have employment contract renewal for our business administrator. Before we make the motion, no, actually what I'd like to do is we could make the motion, then I'd like to have Dr. Lyons say a few words.
Okay.
We make the motion first, please.
Sure. Move that the school committee vote to approve the superintendent's recommendation to renew the employment of Christine Bufagna as the school business administrator and to negotiate and sign an employment agreement for the contract term July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2025.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Dr. Lyons.
Thank you. And so this evening, I'm making a recommendation that we renew the contract for school business administrator Christine Bufagna, who sits as part of this group. And so I know a number of you have interacted with her on any number of different projects. For the viewing community, we here in Wakefield are a pretty light administrative, administrative group, pretty flat administrative structure. And the administrators, especially at central office and at the school level, wear a number of different hats. And so Christine is also part of that group where, yes, she's the school business administrator, and other districts, that would be one hat. But she also helps with or takes the lead on human resources here in the district and is part of the negotiating teams, and as well as creating the annual budgets, and interacts with the principals at the school levels and works on kind of union activity while also supporting human resources and personnel that need support in their roles. And so, I cannot list all of the things she does. I will tell you, I've been at this for a little while. She's an exceedingly talented person and an exceedingly humble person. So none of these things would come from her. So they're coming from me, and I'm sure she's thinking, please stop. Like, could you please cut to the chase and please stop this madness, right? And so, but I will tell you, we are very fortunate in Wakefield to have such an accomplished school business administrator. I think, to be honest, she could work anywhere. The fact that she chooses to work here is to our benefit. So it is really a no-brainer on my part to work with her to renew her contract, and to garner the support of the school committee in that process.
Any comments or questions from the committee?
Yeah, okay, Kevin.
Go ahead, Mike.
Huh?
Go ahead.
So, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, from the time I started here, she sat down with me, explained me everything. I don't think there's been a single question I've asked her she couldn't answer for me. We're very fortunate to have her here. I'm really excited to be in the finance subcommittee so I can work with her even more. I'm not sure if she's happy about that, but I'm happy about that. She's been.
We're all happy about that.
But she's been great. I couldn't agree more with moving her forward on that. So you're a real asset for us. Thank you.
Kevin?
Yeah, similarly, I'll keep it short just because it is probably awkward sitting here. But we don't often get a chance to praise everyone like we should and really express the thankfulness for someone's job. And I've gotten to work with 4 very good business administrators over the course of my time here. But you're certainly at the top of that list, and really clear. I think everything's really done well, and I enthusiastically support Dr. Lyons moving forward to tie you up here for a little bit longer. So thank you for all you do, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work together.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Let me just, add to that, having worn a similar hat to yours over the last 20 years, 24 years from my career, it is certainly very difficult, very challenging work. It's very precise work, and it's very public work. And it takes a particular set of not only skills, but attention to detail and thoughtfulness and collaboration to make the business engines run. And I'm equally happy as join my colleagues and join Doug in thanking you for the last 3 years and wishing you and us the best for the next 3 years.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. Okay, motion made, seconded, discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Dr. Lyons, and thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Superintendent's reports and remarks. Dr. Lyons.
Thank you. This is a special time of year. It's an opportunity for us to recognize teachers that are retiring. And the 6 women that we're going to recognize tonight all have something in common, and that is really an amazing ability to learn, adapt, and reinvent themselves as student needs have changed. So the first person that I'd like to invite to the table is Jill Shari Kramer. Jill's in studio with us here tonight. And so Jill and I have had the pleasure of being colleagues for the last 7 years that I've been here. But Jill, when I arrived here, I couldn't figure out the accent. I'm thinking it's a English, but New York, what's happening here? But if you look at her resume, it kind of becomes clear. So from about 82 to 92, about a decade, Jill taught in Brooklyn, and some very difficult, some separate programs where she was a special education teacher and a special education coordinator. Then in 92, from 82 to 92, then in 92, she taught in London from 92 to 2006, where she also found her way to some pretty tough programs and some boys' schools. And then in 2006 to present, till this year, Jill has worked at Wakefield Memorial High School. And so, when I described initially this notion of, learning and adapting based on the students that are in front of you, I don't know really many people who do that better than Jill, to be completely honest. And I cannot tell you how many students that I cross paths with that will ask me, hey, Mr. Lyons, how's Miss Shari doing? I wouldn't be here talking to you right now if it weren't for Miss Shari. And so, as teachers, if we have 1 or 2 of those experiences in our career, we feel very fortunate. We feel like we've made a difference. But for Jill, it's been dozens of students, right? As she worked in the alternative program here at the high school with students that had, really a number of different needs, and that didn't make coming to school easy, right? It didn't make, students didn't feel like they belonged here. They didn't feel like they had a space. And Jill kind of led with this notion of making relationships, and she was able to love kids. And because kids knew that, they would be open to listening to her and opening to learning from her. As part of my recent research for my dissertation, I interviewed a student who I didn't know shared. She said, I don't know if you know, but when I was in high school, the safe space for me was the bathroom, kind of the girls' bathroom. And until one day, this crazy teacher came in there and said, we're not doing this anymore. You're coming with me. And so, but the student is now in college, very successful. And it's interesting, the student broke down and started crying, just describing what Jill had done for her. She said, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be in school. I wouldn't be successful if it wasn't for Miss Kramer. So for Jill, for all of your students, for all of the staff that have worked with you, for me personally, I'm grateful for all that you have done for so many at Wakefield Memorial High School, and I want to sincerely thank you and wish you the absolute best in your retirement. So thank you.
Thank you. You have this way of making me cry. I won't say a lot. I'll just say a little tiny but huge thank you to Doug and to Kara for all your support over the years. I have loved my time in Wakefield. I've made lifelong friendships with my colleagues and with students and families. I feel very fortunate. I've never taught anywhere for 16 years, but kind of once I came to Wakefield, it started to feel like home.
Yeah.
And it's a great community. I have loved it. I have enjoyed it. Being the alternative program director is not a job for everyone, but I've loved that. And then spending the last 4 years teaching English, co-teaching English, being an MSN has been different from anything I've ever done. But those kids still found me, and I have loved it. And I'm looking forward to moving forward, but Wakefield will always have a place in my heart. So thank you all. And I didn't cry. Thank you.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Okay. So, I have a hard time with these retirements. My youngest child just graduated from high school, so, we're on the back end. Some of you are kind of in the midst of it. So the retirement's always hard for me because you have teachers that taught your kids and had such an impact on your kids in so many ways. And
Thank you. I love your kids. You know I love your kids. Thank you.
Any other comments? Dr.
Because you're the only one that's here in person, as I've reserved it for the others as well. This is always one of my favorite kind of end of the year events to have, to take a moment to recognize people who've dedicated their careers to Wakefield, found a vocation in working with young people. And one of the things, listening to some of your stories and Dr. Lyons sharing some of the participants in his research, many of whom had experiences working with you, it's so critical, I think, for young people to have a space where they feel like they belong. And that's not always the case for some people. They don't have that place, maybe even like that participant you're talking about. And one of my favorite researchers who studies sense of belonging says sense of belonging's, a basic human need that it takes on, different contexts and importance based on the context. In a school at this age, you want to belong. It's so critical. And lastly, it's so important that it drives human behavior. And for so many people, like your classroom interacting with you, was that place where they belonged. And so it's amazing, to think about the over 2 different continents, the impact that you've had on people. And thank you for everything you've done, particularly here, but just even as an educator myself, for what you've done in the field of education to make a sense of belonging for people. It's really an amazing vocation. So congratulations and thank you.
Thank you. I feel grateful that I've had that opportunity. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And congratulations again.
Thank you. Can I go?
Yeah.
I didn't know when it was appropriate to
Thank you
go.
so much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Jill. Peace.
So we are also recognizing 5 other women that are part of this year's group that are retiring. Jean Buckley graduated from Boston College a few years back, but her 31-year career really focused, it really was about early childhood education. And it brought her to many places, many different parts of the state, She taught in Brookline, Ashburnham, Reading, Melrose, and I don't know how Oman gets slides in here. But again, I think this speaks to the kind of the range of women that we're talking about this evening, and back to this theme of being able to learn, adapt, and be successful. So Jean has taught in a number of different places, different countries, and so she is really just been able to find a way to make space for herself, be a model for colleagues, and really be exceptional. Here in Wakefield, she taught kindergarten at Walton and Woodville for 8 years. And for the last 4 years, she moved into a library media specialist role, where it was kind of like the kind of the meeting of all worlds, where she had an expertise in early childhood literacy, and also kind of an expertise in technology, where were able to kind of guide students in the library media space, but also to support them in that space with the use of technology to develop skills in that area as well. She took on the transition of changing from K teacher to library media specialist very seriously. She could have done this, she could have observed and she could have gotten her certification in a number of different ways, but took this very seriously, took courses, took this on like it was her first job, and learning again became part of her reinventing herself and also contributing at a really, really high level. And so for the last 4 years, she's been at Walton and Greenwood, and she's been amazing. She's been a building representative for several years at Walton and Woodville, gave her a chance to meet colleagues at Galvin and the high school, her children graduated from Wakefield Memorial High School as well, and ironically have both kind of attended university in Scotland. And so they kind of, I think that they have that love, not only the love of learning, but also this kind of desire to travel and learn by doing. And so she's really been a model for adults and students in a very special way, and we wish her the absolute best, right? That's our second candidate that we're recognizing tonight, or our second retiree. Our third retiree is Jennifer Cook. Jen has been in Wakefield since 2013 as an ESL teacher. That entire time she's been at Woodville. I've shared with the committee, I think our other committee, I've shared that back a short time ago, if you were an elementary student and you needed ESL services, you would be districted to Woodville. And so really that created some difficulty with students making relationships at their home schools. So we kind of broke away from that. And Jennifer Cook was actually a super kind of resource for us in helping us place students in their home schools, but also not only place students, but also learn how to provide service at each of those schools. So since her time, since she started in about 2013, our ESL or our EL population has just about tripled. So it's really been something special. Jen was our very first EL coordinator in 2014. And prior to coming to Wakefield, she served on an ESL bilingual advisory group board at the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed. And she also piloted the original ESL model curriculum at the Department of Ed, or from the Department of Ed. And so she's been a player in that space. She's retiring this year as well. So the next person that we're recognizing, this is a tough one for me because Mary Doherty has become a key player in our leadership that has advised and partnered with the Board of Health. So Mary Doherty is a school nurse at Greenwood. So Mary is a graduate of the Mass General Hospital School of Nursing, but also the Mass College of Pharmacy. I don't think many people know that. She spent the first 21 years of her career in community health, right? And so as you hear these things, they make more sense when you think about Mary speaking, or when you see her kind of teaching and talking to faculty or principals, or collaborating with the local Board of Health. It makes sense, these skills that she has developed. But she has really been our partner for the administration and helping us create guidelines, and then guidelines change and create new guidelines, and they change again and we create new guidelines. She's just been such a go-to person for us, and it's really hard for us to see her retire, but we are so happy for her. She's been a leader at Greenwood. She worked at a number of different schools. She was at Galvin, Doyle. I think she was at Ewell for a while, and then when nurses were placed full-time at schools, she ended up at Greenwood. And since she's been there, she's been amazing. She's partnered with PTO, she's done fundraisers, she's worked with different groups. She's raised about $30,000 with different groups for students. And so she is just all about the work and all about students. And for the last number of years has been kind of a co-coordinator or a co-leader with Kelly Qualey from Walton. And they've been a real resource for us. And we are fortunate, and I can say from the administrative perspective, we are grateful to have had such an amazing opportunity to have worked with her. So that's Mary Doherty. Next is Jean Gately, also a graduate of Boston College, ironically. Jean Gately was kind of ahead of the curve in a number of different ways. So Jean Gately originally worked at the Landmark School back in 1982. And so, Landmark, for those of you that don't know, Landmark is a very, very prestigious language-based school that works with students that have language-based disabilities. But in every other way, they're presenting like an average child, but they just have a language-based deficit that they may need kind of unique instruction. And Landmark was one of the original schools that kind of cut a path in the space. She started working there. And fortunately for us, in '89, she came to us and originally worked at the Atwell, and before the Atwell was phased out as a junior high school. So she was ahead of the curve learning about language-based instructional practices from one of the very best schools in the country. I would also say that she's also kind of ahead of the curve as junior high schools went away and as kind of the middle school model came into place. She was there at the beginning of that. So she started teaching at Galvin in 1989 and has worked as a language-based teacher, as a sub-separate teacher, and she's pushed into classes to support, she's pulled students out to support, and has been really remarkably effective in those spaces. We want to wish her the absolute best in her retirement as well. And so our last person that we're recognizing this evening is Jane Cannell. So Jane Cannell is the library media specialist at Galvin Middle School. And so she just retired this past October, but prior to coming to Wakefield, she was a librarian at the Littauer Kennedy School of Government at Harvard, she's a librarian there. She also retired as the Director of Research and Information Services at Fleet Financial. And so that's kind of, these things are like really well-kept secrets. And here you see her, she first started volunteering at Galvin, and then she got a full-time position there, but really remarkably overqualified for that role. And we were very, very fortunate to have had her work for the students of Galvin and the Wakefield Public Schools. Really smart, really funny, remarkably unfiltered, but we love her for all of those reasons. And so we will miss her dearly, and I want to wish her the absolute best in her retirement as well. So those are our 6 candidates that we're recognizing tonight. And again, from all of us here at school committee and from all of the administration, teachers and faculty, we want to wish all of our retirees the absolute best. So thank you so much.
Very good, Doug. Thank you. Any thoughts in general to share or ask the superintendent? Seeing none, I'm sure we all concur wholeheartedly with your remarks, and thank you for putting the time into the research and getting. Not that you certainly know these folks being here for your time, but you had to put in extra research. So thank you for doing that as well and making it really a personal touch.
Sure.
Thanks. Okay, moving on.
So general comments and updates. We continue, last week was our last community call on Thursday, and we also accumulated our final COVID numbers for the year. We will not be keeping track of COVID numbers over the summer. We will kind of get back at it and see what those numbers look like and how we can keep track. We're also working with our extended year services, our extended year programs, to figure out how we can best support students and families if they need testing. And so COVID testing availability, and there'll be more information that will come from those programs to students and families that are participating in those programs. But in terms of numbers, as of last week, I want to say we had 37 cases. Is that right, Kara?
I think so,
Yeah.
37, yeah.
37 cases, and I'll bring up our total numbers in a moment. But you know, that's kind of a number. We're going in a downward trend as we're going into summer, and we couldn't be more pleased about that. But we are thinking about what will change and what will stay the same as we end this year and as we think about summer services and opening school next year. We are very curious to understand if the state has an interest in continuing to support testing. We do think that the testing and the support that we've provided our community, it's been helpful. I think, you know, the availability of rapid tests so that students and families can test and make decisions quickly. Sometimes people are not symptomatic, and because they're not presenting as symptomatic, if they can learn quickly that they are positive and they can kind of take time and kind of isolate, it's a great help to our school community. So and it feels funny continuing to talk about COVID, but hopefully we'll be able to do that less and less as we move forward. But that's a COVID update at this moment in time. Happy to answer any questions that anyone might have about that before we move on. Yeah?
So when you say I think you said we're like gonna assess where we are, is it the state that's asking for numbers weekly, or is that something that Wakefield is doing on its own?
Both.
Both. And is there any indication that the state might be dropping that requirement, or they haven't decided yet?
We haven't heard that they will be continuing that in the fall.
You haven't heard either way?
We haven't heard. We
Okay.
haven't heard about that yet.
All right, that's all. Thank you.
So, other questions? People are COVIDed out. I don't blame you. So I don't know that that's a word, but we got it.
It's not a bad word if it's not, it should be.
I think people are exhausted from hearing about COVID. So I think at this point, I can turn it over to Kara
Yep,
for our curriculum update.
Yep. So I don't know if it's possible to see Lisa Azzarito and Margaret Messier on the Zoom. They're presenting with me. Yep, there they are.
Boom.
Just like that, great. So I'll start with introductions. Lisa and Margaret, if you can just say hi. I'd like to introduce Lisa Azzarito, our Elementary Humanities Coordinator.
Hi, everybody.
And Margaret Messier, our 5 through 12 ELA Curriculum Coordinator.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us.
Okay, we're a trio that's presenting two times tonight. So we're going to start with the Indigenous Curriculum Task Force report. Jason Pavey, I'd also like to highlight him, was instrumental in this work. He is our 5 through 12 Social Studies Curriculum Coordinator, but he was not able to be here tonight. But I did want to just highlight that he was with us every step of the way for this as well. So just to give a little background, just to bring everybody back to April 21, was when the school committee was making the decisions around the logo and put together a resolution. As part of that, the school committee directed the district to put together an Indigenous Curriculum Task Force to analyze the ways in which we're representing Indigenous people and history in our curriculum, K through 12. So we did that. We took that directive and we ran with it. It was a year-long process that started in November of 21, and we'll get into the details of it tonight throughout the presentation. This right here is just right from the DESE History and Social Science Framework, just a principle that drives our work to incorporate diverse perspectives across the curriculum in order to acknowledge that perceptions are affected by race, ethnicity, culture, religion, education, gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, and personal experience. So that's one of our history and social science framework that has really driven our work. This right here is the task force members. We had a great representation of community members, students, curriculum leaders, administration. It actually carries on to the next page. These were all of our task force members, and everybody did their best, came to as many meetings as possible. Life gets in the way, but we always had enough people to have really good conversations and to break out into different subgroups. So it was a really, really nice group to work with. And just in terms of the overview of our work, just in terms of getting the process that we focused on. Oh, Margaret, I'm taking your slide. Sorry.
Oh,
I kept talking. I thought that you were going to jump in on that slide. Go ahead.
So we had begun some of this work prior to the task force assembly. So this is just kind of an overview of everything we've done from a little bit before the task force came together until afterwards. So there were kind of three major areas that we looked at, and that's the professional development for our teachers and for ourselves, the curriculum design, and the student and community involvement. So this is just kind of an overview of the professional development that we had. So we started in 2020 with Dr. Raul Fernandez being our keynote speaker on equity and diversity inclusion, and that was back in 2020. And then kind of in preparation for this work of the task force, Jason Pavey and I attended Upstander Academy in the summer of 2021. And that really gave a robust curriculum around incorporating Indigenous history and contributions, and kind of the idea of teaching the truth and presenting the view from the land and the view from the shore, and really giving students a perspective from both sides so that they can make informed decisions and critically think about things from history rather than just getting one side of things. So that was hugely helpful, and we continued that work by having Dr. Michie Lesser do a PD with all of our teachers this past September on why teaching truth matters, and kind of giving a briefer overview of the work that Jason and I dug into during that week-long Upstander Academy. We also did a screening of the documentary Dawnland by Adam Mazzo and Michie Lesser in the Upstander Project, which talks about kind of the what went on in Maine during the 1970s with the removal of Indigenous children from their families and kind of the impact that had, and how they formed a Truth and Reconciliation Committee to kind of reckon with that as a community and come together on it, which is something that we were trying to do in Wakefield. So there were a lot of kind of connections and inroads there. Also this past year, the 5 through 12 humanities teachers have had professional development on culturally responsive teaching practices and kind of how to build community in your classrooms where all voices are heard and all perspectives are represented. Additionally, teachers have been given collaborative planning time during PLCs and during professional development days to grapple with the information that they're presented with and think about how to take some of this Indigenous history that they're learning and apply it into their teaching practice, into their unit plans, and into their curriculum. So I kind of hit upon this, but the curriculum design pieces, the incorporation of more diverse texts in ELA and in social studies, that's going to be an ongoing process. We're constantly going to be trying to keep our text current and to be representing a multitude of voices. You know, as our world changes and evolves, so do the things that we cover in our classroom. We had a common professional practice goal this year for humanities teachers around incorporating this professional learning that we're doing. So it's not just kind of something theoretical taking place outside of the classroom, but we're taking this work and taking some of the work of the committee and having time to actually think about how we're incorporating it into our classrooms. We've also, Jason Pavey and I designed and piloted a humanities elective called Conversations in Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion that we've been evolving, and we've added a major unit in that course to be around Indigenous history. So we're proud of that work, and we've actually made the course half of the year next year instead of a full year so that it will enable more students to take it, and we've opened it up for any student that wants to take it in grades 9 through 12, where in the past it's just been for 11th and 12th graders. So we're really trying to get as many students involved in that as would like to be. We're also trying to incorporate students' diverse interests and learning styles by opening up more diverse options for senior electives and ELA courses and social studies courses. And library media specialists, really K through 12, have been continuing to examine text and add more diverse voices, including Indigenous voices, to the school libraries, to ensure that everyone is appropriately represented. And finally, we've really wanted to make sure that students in the community have been involved in the work from the start and as it's ongoing. So in the summer of 2020, which was actually the summer before I officially started in Wakefield, I worked with Jason and Doug and Dr. Fernandez, and we did some text talks over the summer with students and parents. We've hosted a virtual assembly at the high school with Dr. Clint Smith. We have obviously formed the Indigenous Curriculum Task Force. We had Michie Lesser, who I mentioned in previous slides, as one of the speakers for Parent University, and provided the opportunity for parents to screen Dawnland and give some thoughts on that. And also Jason and I and two of our students, Elena Greco and Lauren Blois, had the amazing experience of presenting with Dr. Lesser at Massachusetts Civic Learning Week to really highlight, and it was great to have a chance to really show off and be proud of all of the work that Wakefield has been doing around incorporating diverse voices, representing Indigenous voices in curriculum, and everything that we've really been working on over the past 2 years. So that was a really great experience and a great growth experience for both Jason and I and the students. And then the final thing that we've kind of done to make more inclusive community this year was we had a day of unity at the Galvin Middle School and at the high school, and we had a fabulous keynote speaker, Ken Wadake Jr. So that's kind of everything that we've done so far and through the work of the task force. And now I think I'm going to turn it over to
Lisa, yep.
Lisa. Yes, I was just making sure I didn't have one more slide.
So the primary goal of the task force, which started last fall, was to develop recommendations to strengthen the K-12 curriculum so that we make sure that we're accurately reflecting Native American history, culture, voices, and the contributions of Indigenous peoples, especially connected to Wakefield. So as a task force, we determined that we could do this by gathering resources for teachers and also researching programs and presentations to bring into the elementary, middle, and high school students. We looked at the history and social science standards, particularly in grades 3, 5, 8, and at the high school, but we want to make sure that across all grade levels that we continue to diversify materials to offer differing perspectives and to plan enrichment to expose students to Indigenous people, their history and their culture. So our initial meeting was in November of last year, and Michie, who Margaret has spoke about, came and presented to the group, and she really helped frame the work that we planned to do. She unpacked some key concepts for us and really just started the conversations that we just needed to have to begin this work. And this led the group to watch Dawnland, the documentary that Margaret mentioned. And after that, we came together to discuss how that film connected to the work that we were trying to accomplish. And there were some really powerful conversations between educators, students, and the community members. And it really gave a sense of the missing pieces of the information in what we're teaching. So then the task force members, this is probably more around the start of the year, we all read specific chapters from the book, An Indigenous Peoples' History of the U.S., and our guiding question is posted there, which was, how could the truths from your chapter be incorporated in our curriculum at multiple grade levels? So we met in pairs and small groups to kind of discuss the big ideas that resonated with us. And then we made recommendations for where these could or should be taught. And what was interesting is a lot of things, came up across all grade levels. Some of the things that we realized or learned were some of the contributions that were not necessarily things you would teach in social studies, but maybe there was something that would be as part of a science class that would be about early medicine or something about soccer. So it was a very interesting conversation. We learned a lot. So we then formed 2 subcommittees, and one of the committees was focused on the Indigenous history resources that were connected to Wakefield. And then we had another committee that was on finding the speakers and enrichment ideas. So both committees created a working document. It's still in progress, and so we're adding to it as we go. The resource subcommittee created this document that has links and descriptions and different grade levels where these videos and articles and photos that we found could be incorporated. And so some of these included photographs, things from the Beebe Library or from the Wakefield Historical Society. And then the speaker subcommittee, they also have a working document that includes potential speakers and partnerships at all levels. So a lot of work was done, a lot of really thoughtful and productive conversations and sharing of ideas. And that leads us to the next steps that Kara's going to talk about based on the work that was done throughout this whole year by this task force.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Yeah, so I think we're really looking at this year as just a starting point. With having gathered all the information and had such great conversations with members of the task force. So what we're thinking about in the work ahead is just how do we get these ideas and these resources into the hands of our teachers. And so we do have plans to have our curriculum coordinators work with teachers in both professional development and PLC space department meetings. Department meetings and professional development to dip into that a little bit more. We're just continuing, a lot of the work will continue around developing our different course offerings, particularly our electives at the high school, and again, looking at the resources that we're using across the district. This came up, at a couple of different points about creating a partnership with a consultant from a local Indigenous community to help guide our work as well. And then we will continue that partnership with the Upstander project. And a lot of our work has been based in the humanities, and we're just thinking about how we can expand this and just thinking about highlighting Indigenous people, like kind of what Lisa was saying in science and math in our STEM courses as well. And just always, I think this, like I said, everyone on the task force was impressive, but the students in particular, their passion, their desire for change, their desire to see us work with them to build in changes to the curriculum that they're seeking. And so I think the students were really impressive on the task force, and we just want to continue to create those safe spaces for students. But I think that was it, just in terms of a highlight overview, but we're happy to take any questions if anybody has any.
Kara?
Yeah.
Is that committee expected to stay in existence going forward? There was quite an impressive list of people on the list.
Yeah, it was.
Rachel Hathaway, who I think
she was
amazing.
excellent. Yeah, I got to be in a subgroup, a subcommittee group.
A ton of other ones on that list too, and the kids, So what's the purpose? Is that group meant to be an ongoing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think the directive from the resolution was kind of create the task force, do the work, get things started, but this work really doesn't end, and I think as long as people have an interest in collaborating with us and checking back in, some of the students, I believe, Margaret, some graduated, some of, people, like I said, people could join when they could. I don't think we'll have a formal task force next year. I think we had a nice conclusion at our last meeting in May in just talking about the work of the year and where we want to go with that, and I think everybody felt pretty good with that conclusion, but we're open to, revisiting, bringing the task force back together here and there.
Yeah, I like the fact that you have younger people involved
Yeah.
in it, because they bring a unique perspective of what they experience as
Absolutely.
Wakefield High School students in
Yeah.
many cases. Rachel's one example.
And they did
will be
bring
one
that
now too.
to the conversation.
So that brings a different perspective, I guess, to the whole thing. Not that once
Definitely.
we haven't been doing anything from the beginning, it's not like this was a complete makeover
Right.
to start with, but there's always ways to enhance the
Absolutely.
education. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, Kevin?
Hi, so looking at the three, like the slide where you looked at those three things, professional development, curriculum design, and then the student and community involvement. I looked through the working Google Docs that you guys had, and I was really impressed with the professional development piece. I was really impressed with the collection of resources that you guys collected. And it seems that you guys really, put a lot of work in terms of, looking at how we can actually accomplish this professional development for our teachers. And the community development piece looked really great as well. The thing that looks challenging to me is the curriculum design piece, in that it's great that there's an elective being offered, that humanities elective that be offered for a semester. But the thing that concerned me looking through it was that I was trying to figure out a way how that professional development could be interwoven into specifically the elementary and middle school curricula. And I know that's very challenging. I just would hate to see all this work just dropped. You know what I mean? And I saw the slide where you have the where you had like the units where you could interweave some of these in, and you actually, depict where this would fit in some of these elementary, middle school units, which is great. The problem is, how do we get from this step to the real step, which is where we're actually teaching this stuff? Because this stuff doesn't get interwoven into the classroom. Oh, this is meaningless. This all looks great and sounds great, but we actually don't accomplish anything. So I was wondering where the next step for there to make sure that we can interweave this in the curriculum would go.
Yeah, we thought, I completely agree with you. High school is kind of a different story, and we thought more specifically around elementary and middle. And the timing actually works out pretty well with our upcoming ELA review, where we'll get into that in our next presentation, but we're thinking a lot about doing a deeper dive into prioritizing social studies content at the elementary level, which we touched upon in our social studies curriculum review that took place, I believe it was my first year, so probably 4 years ago now. But elementary was not a level where we bought new resources for. And Lisa has started the work in her role as humanities coordinator to be thinking about prioritizing standards at each grade level and trying to find different entry points. But we're going to be weaving social studies at the elementary level into our ELA review with a particular focus on building vocabulary, reading comprehension skills. Lisa, if you want to add anything else, but that's kind of where we are with elementary, and I think it will weave in nicely with our ELA review where we can dig in a little bit more. Because you're right, I think that was the thing that we talked about at the end. Now we need to get this great information into the hands of teachers, and I think we can do that in a couple of different ways. Like we said, our professional development structure has changed a little bit in that we're really trying to kind of stay with one type of topic throughout the 8 half-day sessions and give not only time for new learning, but time for practical application as well. So we kind of have, last year was our first year trying that structure, and we're going to continue it next year too, where we do some new learning, and then we allow the teachers time to collaborate with one another to process what they've learned and then how they can directly apply it in their classroom. So we think there will be some space there, as well as the middle school schedule is great in terms of the department meeting schedule, PLCs, same with the high school. So we think, just in talking to Jason and Margaret, feel free to jump in. I know that that's what you had your eye on.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to that. I think that that is a crucial piece because, as we all know, time for teachers is so limited, and it's great to learn about all these things. But the most important part is how do you then take it and directly put it into practice? So a structure that we had last year that we're going to continue this year, and this was at grades 5 through 12, was teachers would have a half day where they had learning, and then the next half day was all taking that learning and actually designing lessons and implementing it into the curriculum. And next year during our half day, we're going to be doing, I'll talk about this at our next presentation when we talk about the curriculum review, but they're actually going to be doing a book study about how to practically incorporate these things into classrooms, and the structure is going to be the same, where they will have some learning, and then they will have a huge chunk of time to actually look at their curriculum guides and incorporate those things into the curriculum guides, as well as Kara said, during PLC time, which happens for every grade level, 5 through 12, once during a 7-day rotation. So they once a week really have PLC opportunities to do this, and during our department meeting time. So we're trying to give as much built-in time for teachers to actually dig in and think about how they're going to incorporate this across grade levels.
Does that help, Kevin, if you have any other follow-up?
No, that's great. I just, sorry, it's I could talk about this forever, and Tom, you can shut off my mic. But it's one of those things where you've done all the work on the PD, you've done all the work, right? I get it's there, and I was just thinking about what the structure would be to kind of give the teachers the PD, but also kind of make sure it's like a kind of a school system directive that, yeah, we actually want to put this like in the curriculum, K through 12. If this what the task force was doing, and that's what the goal is. So I just want to make sure that a system's there that's going to do that. As a teacher, I hate to break it to you, but there's been a lot of PD over the 23 years, and sometimes it's like, yeah, this is great, and other times like, and I just want to make sure that this doesn't get, and will actually be will be done.
Yeah,
So.
we have an eye on just trying to do less better and trying to
Yes.
stick with things and not just rushing PD one and done, moving on. And that's what I think drove the shift in our structure this year to have a similar focus area throughout the course of the year with time built in for teachers to collaborate and really think about what they learned. And then, we issue PDPs at the end of the year. It worked really well. And I think it gives, and we've really differentiated by department as well.
Yeah.
So that we're not running any professional development that, isn't relevant to certain people in the room.
Right.
It's really differentiated by department, which I think you've seen on our PD plan, how
Yeah,
we break
yeah.
that out.
Yeah.
And I would add, one of the things that's unique about this work in the early phases is that students were involved early.
Yeah.
So while adults were learning, students were learning on the same timeline,
Yeah.
right? And so we were adjusting, or I should say Margaret and Jason Pavey were adjusting as they were going through this, speeding up, slowing down, really to find a spot and really taking the lead of students in regard to what they wanted to know more about and how we could kind of give time to help support their questions and their curiosity. But because students were involved, they had kind of this natural curiosity or way that they wanted to learn, which really helped us. I think it's a pretty unique way to do this.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of districts that are launching curriculum on the same timeline while students are sitting beside adults, right? Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
No, yeah. And I think the student and community involvement is great. And I think what's important, though, is they're giving their insight into how they want to learn and what they want to learn.
Right.
We just have to make sure that that small group of students that was involved, that will get disseminated to all the students. You know what I mean? So I agree that those, you've done the work. It's great. Just want to make sure that it gets,
Absolutely.
put into the curriculum. I'll stop talking about this.
Well, so sort of to piggyback on what Kevin had said, I'm curious about how does it get sort of woven into curriculum so that it's not just a resource that sort of teachers have access to, but that sort of it's something that's being taught uniformly across the district. Like it's one thing to sort of have an educator who has a passion for the topic in a given grade and sort of focus and grab a lot of those resources and sort of disseminate them to the class, whereas somebody on the other side of the district might not have that same sort of personal passion, and so that can get taught sort of not uniformly. So how do we sort of, when this is new, especially when it's through PD, how do we make sure that that's being done evenly?
Yeah, I can let Margaret, because I think the curriculum coordinator structure really helps with that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can just speak to that for English because, well, obviously this is meant for history as well, and I know I can speak for Jason when I say that he works very closely with his teachers also. For example, in every grade level, 5 through 12, we've added a title by an Indigenous author. And every single teacher, 5 through 12, is reading that text with their classes, whatever that selected text was for their grade level. So during their PLC time and their PD time this year, they were collaborating with resources that we gathered, talking about pacing for those titles, talking about where they were going to fit them in which units they were going to use them. And then it's kind of my responsibility, Jason's responsibility, to facilitate teachers in that work and to ask, so when are you using this? How are some of the lessons incorporated, to come in and see these things in action? And I think, it's not everyone's 100% woohoo on board in the beginning, but I think once we do this work together, it gets people on board. And I think just having those, those set lessons, those set topics, or in the case of ELA, those set texts, really helps everyone get on board. So everyone in 9th grade is doing this text. Let's create some resources for it, and let's think about where and when we're going to apply it. So I've been happy with how that kind of interweaving with the Indigenous text went in English this year, I still think that we have a lot of work to do, and that the first time you teach something is never the best time you teach something. So I think that that's really going to continue to evolve, and those lessons are going to get more in depth. And the resources that we find, like Common Lit has amazing paired text to go with a lot of the Indigenous author text that we've incorporated, and that's been a great resource. So we've been doing some paired readings, and I think we're really each year going to develop that even further. So I think the work is started. You should be seeing it in the curriculum. I know 5 through 12 has been working on this a little bit longer, but we're getting there, and I think it is actually getting put into practice. I'm actually really proud of how well the teachers put it into practice in such a short time frame this year.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more. I think, the Galvin and the high school being, the departments being in one building together, and with, all of our curriculum coordinators going between the two, they definitely have a lot of time together for planning, collaboration through PLCs and department meetings, like Margaret said. Elementary is where it can get more challenging, which is, I think, a huge reason why we brought the curriculum leadership structure down to elementary, to create that consistency across the 4 schools, because it can easily happen without really specific curriculum leadership. It can happen that each school, by no fault of anyone, can just kind of start to go off and do things dramatically different. And one of our huge goals here is to have equitable experiences across all of our schools. And I think we saw that with the math review. Just in terms of bringing the 4 schools together and having the unit planning together, similar scope and sequence. That's what, again, we're going to get into ELA next. That's our goal with ELA as well, that we have, we give teachers space, but we have pretty consistent curriculum expectations across all 4 schools. So, Lisa, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but I know this is your first year in this role.
Yep. So I was just going to add that that's part of the goal this summer, is to prioritize the standards by grade level so that we do have common experiences across all 4 schools. And some of the units in literacy that we are currently teaching do have common texts that the teachers do use, and, to help students think about perspectives and the voices of characters in those texts. And the library media specialists at the elementary school have worked together to make sure that they have similar texts in their libraries, and that they're able to expose the students across all 4 schools to similar texts. So it is a work in progress, and we're on our way. We're doing this work, we're starting it out, and I think that I'm excited that we've had this shift in this structure so that we can focus on social studies at the elementary level. If you ask teachers, they will say, like, this work, they've wanted this to happen for a long time. So that's our goal: equitable experiences for kids and common texts and lessons for teachers. So we are on our way there.
Thanks, Lisa. Any other questions on this? Yep, Eileen? Yep.
First of all, I think this is awesome. It's great work. It's like what you guys have done since, when did this?
November.
November. I mean, I think it's great. I was just wondering, I was so moved from a couple of years ago when you guys had the panel of tribal leaders. Did you reach out to any of them to see if they would be speakers, or did you lean on them a little bit to help guide the curriculum?
Yeah, Margaret, I'll defer to you. I know that some of the panel members came up as potential speakers. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I know one in particular. Oh, it's hard right now because I think a lot of people are reaching out to form partnerships, but I know that Claudia Foxtree was on that original panel. Mm-hmm. She's one that was in our list to reach out to. I know that, I believe Kara was at North Reading. The Caroline Lieber went, and she reached out to a local Indigenous leader there. So we have a good list, and I think now we just have to kind of look at that list, do more outreach, and see who really has the time to dig in and maybe work with us over the course of a full year. But Mishy Lesser has a lot of connections through Upstander Project, so she's been a really great resource of pointing us in the right direction. I think a definite next step with the speakers that the committee came up with is we have to actually kind of solidify who has time to work with us and how we're going to utilize that partnership.
That's great.
And I would like to highlight Caroline Lieber. Definitely, she was just an instrumental part of the task force, and definitely made extra efforts outside, to connect us with different people. So I just want to thank her for that. Any other questions? No? Okay. And again, I would just like to thank all of the members of the task force. It was a great group. It was a really great group. And thank you, Margaret and Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want us to just jump right into the next one? Okay, here we go. Okay, so the next, we just wanted to give all of you kind of a preview of the work that we're going to be digging into next year in the curriculum department. So I know a lot of you were here to learn about our math curriculum review that just happened, and we had year 1 of implementation for that this year that's gone really, really well. The next content area that is up for review is ELA. K through 12, we're looping in pre-K as well, pre-K through 12. So I'll just jump into the purpose. So basically, Wakefield Public Schools has a curriculum review cycle that's been in place before me, Doug, maybe even before you, where it kind of got started. So we followed that system that was originally developed, and we've made some tweaks along the way. But the purpose is just to continuously evaluate our curriculum, the resources we're using, and how they are impacting our student achievement and outcomes. So the point we are at with ELA is what we call phase 5 on our review, which we're analyzing, how are we doing in the area of ELA? Are our students learning is what we set out to do. Working, are our students learning? So that's really the purpose behind it. The vision statement is going to be something that drives the whole process. And, it's basically going to help, the group come together and really get behind our work that will happen throughout the year. We're going to brainstorm the vision as a whole group and put it together, but that will happen a little bit later in the review. We're going to get through, the different meetings that will happen early on in the review process to set context, and then the committee will come together to form a common vision that will drive the work. So here are the elements of how we set up the different meetings for the year. We got together, Margaret and Lisa and Michelle Lebrecq is our humanities coach, and myself and others. We've been doing kind of some behind the scenes planning since probably January, just thinking about how we want to structure this process. And we've gone back and forth, and just there's so many different components of ELA when you think about it broadly across K through 12 that we really felt like we had to break out pre-K to 4 and 5 through 12. So we're going to chunk it out into different groups. But one of the most important things we felt was to make sure that all of the members of our committee had the understanding and dug into the research a little bit more in terms of best practices in ELA instruction, particularly around early literacy instruction, which is a huge topic right now in education. So we're going to spend a lot of time research and book study. Then we'll come together as a larger committee to develop our vision statement. And then later on in the process will be when we look at our resources and materials. And we're going to try to narrow down different materials that we would like to field test in our classrooms. And then, we'll also do some data analysis as well, kind of throughout the process, even to drive our early work to just look at how our students are doing right now and where we might have gaps. I have to say, I think Lisa and Margaret and I all agree that what DESE is putting out right now on the mass literacy portion of the website is pretty impressive. I think, nothing's perfect, and there's always, questions to ask and other resources to pull in, but I think it's a really great starting point for all of us and for our work. And so we've been really impressed with a lot of the research that they put just right up on the mass literacy website, and also the curate process that they put in place too, where they have educators just rating and digging into different curriculum resources that are standards aligned for our students. This is still me, right? Am I going too far?
Yeah.
Okay. I lost track. So again, this is, we thought a lot about how to break out because it is such a broad topic. So we're using this structure to drive all of our meetings and our work. And this is based on the recommendations for what a core literacy block should entail. Foundational skills, which is all of your early literacy, phonological awareness skills, engaging with complex text, which dips in to vocabulary development, reading comprehension, and then, of course, writing. So the idea is that all of these components should be in play in a really solid literacy block. So we decided to structure all of our meetings and our review on these 3 focus areas. And this just gets into, I'll try to move it along, but this just kind of shows, as I mentioned, we're in phase 5. To start, we started planning in January, just kind of making sure that we have a plan that will really meet our needs. We don't want this to just be a check in the box process. We want to make sure that it's really thorough, that we loop a lot of people into it. We already have, we'll get into it later, but we already have formed a committee, and the work will start this summer. This summer, we're starting with our principal group at elementary, in particular on all of the research that's come out on early literacy skills and what needs to be in place for our students early on, right out of the gate. So we have a couple of different meetings structured where we'll have facilitated meetings to dig into that research. The elementary principals have been unbelievable. They've already told us they want to be with it every step of the way, because I think as elementary principals, that's one of their most important jobs, is to be a literacy leader within their buildings. And then our secondary principals as well have met with Margaret and teachers and just really want to be hands-on in this work, which we're really excited about. So I kind of went through all the other timelines, but if you have questions, it just kind of gives a breakdown of how this will shake out. And then, as I mentioned, we already have identified the team. So we just put over here, as I have already mentioned, Lisa is our K-4 Humanities Coordinator, Michelle Lebrecq is our K-4 Humanities Coach, and then Margaret is our 5 to 12 ELA Coordinator. They, along with me, will lead the work. And then we did decide to break out into 2 groups with focus area on preschool and elementary, and then secondary. And those just tell the titles of the representation we wanted on the committee. And we've recently, just a couple weeks ago, put out, this is what we're doing. If you'd like to be part of it, let us know. And we got great feedback and a lot of people who want to participate. So we already have a team in place that I think represents the district really well.
Do you want us to ask questions at the end or as we go along?
It doesn't matter, whatever all of you want to do.
I have a question. So I see the teams, but there's no names on the right side of the screen. So you're saying the email went out and you have identified each team?
Yeah, so we just identified the team. Sorry, we didn't have it ready to update here, but we'll come back in the fall and
Okay.
we can talk a little bit about how things have gotten started and then introduce the team like we just did with the task force.
Okay.
But yeah, so we basically, and Lisa and Margaret, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've been able to fill every role that we wanted to have as representation on with a Wakefield teacher.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
think we're at like 20? Lisa and Margaret, is that the correct number?
20 at elementary, yeah, we have a lot of people.
There's a lot to think about. We went a little overboard at elementary, but yeah. And then we're going by department at Galvin, which has about 13, Margaret, and then
Yeah.
about 15 teachers at the high school.
Yeah, and when I get into the high school part, I'll explain basically all of the 5 through 12 English teachers are going to be involved in this just because we have kind of a different structure. But we're also going to be recruiting some special education teachers at each level, which we've already done.
Right. Yeah, our decision to split the review by level kind of naturally has more people participating than if it was district-wide.
Tara, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, and I apologize if you talked about it, or if you're going to talk about it, then I can wait. So you want to test to make sure it's doing what you had hoped it would do. So are there objective measurements as well as subjective? How is the process going to work? How
Well, we will get into
wait.
that,
I'll
but
wait.
if
Yep.
you have that same question at the end, we'll come back to it if we
Absolutely.
didn't hit
Yeah,
on
as
it.
long as we're going to cover it, that's fine. Thank you.
No problem. And then, Lisa, I think you're going to jump in right here.
Okay. All right, so we are very excited to start this work. We have a very balanced team. We have representation from every grade level, from pre-K to 4. We have multiple reading specialists. We just had an EL teacher join us. So I just want to give you a quick overview of our goals, what we're currently focusing on, and then the upcoming process. And then, of course, like Kara said, we'll be updating you throughout the next year as we kind of go through this. So here are our goals for the work of the ELA review team. We're going to be evaluating our current curriculum and practices, and we're going to be exploring new ones, create our vision. And even though the two groups are going to be doing some work separately, there are going to be touch points during the year that all of the K to 12 team members will come together. One of those times will be to create a K to 12 vision statement for literacy, and that really will drive the work that we do for the rest of the year. And then hopefully at the end of the year, we'll be able to make a recommendation for our core literacy program. And when we say curriculum too, I do just want to say, like, we're thinking of the tools and resources, but we also are thinking about like instructional methodology. We're thinking of assessments, our professional learning, standards, being culturally responsive, and also being responsive to the needs of our teachers and students in Wakefield. So currently in that phase that we're in and looking at what we are currently doing, one of the things that we've realized over this past year is that early literacy, foundational skilled work is an area that we need to put more emphasis on in our instruction. And so a lot of work has been done this year and planned for next year to support all our readers and writers and to teach them these foundational skills. So we're really focusing on tier 1, which is our, in-class instruction, but also being able to focus on integrating tier 2 and tier 3. So we're bringing in our reading specialists, our EL teachers, and our special educators as well. And currently we have these in 2 buckets. We have our curriculum and instruction bucket and then our professional learning bucket. And so just to touch on these in curriculum and instruction, we are focusing on those early literacy skills. So phonics, we've had Foundations, a program in our K-2 classrooms for about 7 or so years, but we're going to be doing a refresh because not all of our teachers have been trained. We have new teachers that have come in. And we are launching this program in grade 3 so that our students in 3rd grade will have time during the day to practice reading and also how to apply phonics to their writing, and spelling. We also are bringing these 2 programs into our reading specialists so that they can align their interventions with the work that's going on in the classroom. So we're excited about that. And the second bullet there, phonemic awareness, this is one of the biggest predictors of reading success. And so some teachers have tried out this Hagerty program this year with tremendous success. With the growth with students in kindergarten this year, with people who use this program was just phenomenal. And we want to bring that to all students in Wakefield. So we're introducing phonemic awareness instruction into pre-K, kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. So we're excited about that. And we also have been able to purchase decodable texts for all of our classrooms. And so these are types of texts that really support beginning readers, that the majority of the words can be sounded out based on the phonics skills that they're learning. And it's one piece of the balanced diet of types of texts that kids need to be reading and to be learning to read. And so these are some of the programs that we're bringing in, but just to say that these programs are really like the pathway to the work. And that, that's where our professional learning comes in with teachers, is to support them with the practices in their classrooms. So professional learning, really excited about this. It's already started this year with our grade 3 teachers all being trained by Wilson in Foundations to be able to launch that in their classrooms next year. For K-2, we actually have almost 30 teachers that have opted to take workshops this summer through Wilson to kind of refresh and just learn more about the changes that have been happening in literacy. We have also our reading specialists are all going to be trained as well. And this PD that we talk about, it's really ongoing, and it's going to be throughout the year, and it comes with a lot of collaboration. It comes with work with our coach, and it's a really important part of the process because the curriculum is one piece, but we really need to make sure we support our teachers with implementing this. Our principals are also going to have an opportunity to have some professional learning around this. Our grade 4 teachers are not left out. They are going to be working with our coach, and their focus is going to be on vocabulary, also responding and writing to complex text. And every teacher, staff member, our speech pathologists, EL teachers, special ed teachers, reading specialists, everybody at the elementary level has been given a copy of the book, Shifting the Balance, which is geared towards early literacy, but there's a lot of practices in there that we feel like could benefit K-4 teachers. And it's a book that's going to guide our work next year to align our practices and have common language with students. So I'm really excited about where we are, as part of this process before going into the official formal review next year. I feel like we're in a really, really good place. And I'm excited, and I think the teachers are excited to kind of reflect on things and revise what they're doing and refine what we've been doing for our students.
Go ahead and get.
Hi, for these focus areas, just to be clear, these are focus areas that we're looking to be our focus areas in 2022. It's
So-
2023 for the next school year.
Yeah, so
Right.
when I went back and talked about the components of the core literacy block, we've done a lot of work on foundational skills this year, and it's really just come up naturally just in the conversations that are happening at the building level. And Lisa, I know a lot of teachers in your work with Michelle, getting around to the different buildings, the teachers were really voicing that they felt like these were gaps that we had in our curriculum. And that's where Lisa said we had teachers saying, I'm happy to pilot this year, the Haggerty program, or, I do want to get a reset on foundations because I was either never trained or I was trained years ago. So we were just like, let's go with it then, because we agree that those were gaps that we had. So a lot of the foundational skills work happened naturally this year. So like Lisa said, it's been great. It's ready to go. We have PD starting this summer,
Right.
And some different things launching next year.
And going back to Mike's point about the assessment, were these focus areas picked because teachers anecdotally were like, oh, we really, like they said, we really have to work on these skills. Like they were the ones providing feedback about what.
Well, I think it was a combination. I think
But
it was
also
something that we
assessment
knew, just administratively and with our instructional leadership team, was a potential gap. I think, the work that Lisa and Michelle did all year, pulling the reading specialists together across the district, trying to get some alignment there on what their intervention work looks like. So it was kind of like a perfect joining of ideas where administratively we knew that this was work that we needed to do, but it's all about the pacing and, like kind of Doug says this all the time, like go at a pace where people can move with you. So we felt like this was an area that we could chip away at this year.
Yeah.
So I would say it was kind of in a more organic type thing.
Okay.
Lisa, if you want to add to that, feel free.
Yeah, and I can talk when we get to the assessment piece, but I think that was a piece of it too over this past year or two, is really looking at, the data and hearing from our reading specialists and teachers about, again, where those gaps are. And so it was really driven by the teachers, but also looking at the data and saying, here's where we really need to make some shifts. So.
And Lisa and Michelle ran the Shifting the Balance book study as an optional PD. That's something we offered this year as well because we could do so much by Zoom. We offered a couple of optional PD series for teachers. They received PDPs at the end, but we had, I think, Lisa, it was 30 teachers at the elementary level, pre-K and elementary level join that and just get some really great takeaways. So that's why there was that idea to expand. So the interest is there, for sure. Okay, Lisa, I think you're going to keep going.
Yep. And I just wanted to show this model, just to show that this is one model or theory of reading development. And this is really what is going to kind of drive our work. We have two strands that we think of that have to come together for skilled reading. And the work that we were just talking about, that our area of focus is that bottom strand, the word recognition piece, and where we need to make sure that both of those strands are strong in order to have kids be able to be skilled readers. And so that's where we really felt when we looked at this, we kind of went through and determined, okay, so what are the levers that we have in Wakefield to address these pieces of reading development? And that's where we, certain things came out that there were gaps that we needed to work on. So I do just want to share this, as this is really what our team will also be using next year to kind of continue to look at that. What are we doing and what do we need to do in Wakefield? And this is really our time frame for this research review. As Kara said, we're going to work this summer with our administrative team and digging into the research and revisiting the research. And then starting in the fall, the full team will dig into those three focus areas into research. We're also going to be doing some visits across schools to see what's going on. That's a piece of our needs assessment. And then all of this will inform our vision statement, which will then guide the next part of the review. And then this is where, starting in January, will really dig into the data of our current assessments. So I put these into 3 buckets. We have our early literacy screening, our reading and writing, our normed assessments that we use, and then the assessments that go along with our units. Our early literacy screening, we've been using Alexia Rapid Assessment, which is a computer-based assessment, and we are going to be switching to using the DIBELS 8 assessment in K-2. These are universal screeners where kids are assessed 3 times during the year. They are recommended by the dyslexia guidelines, and also they're on the DESE approved screener list. So these will help us identify and predict the risk of reading difficulty for students. Basically, they answer 3 questions for us: who's at risk, how significant is the risk, and what skill areas need support. It also gives us that big picture data of at grade levels, kind of where we really need to focus more, whether it's in our classrooms or for our reading specialists. And our normed assessments, we have a benchmark assessment, which really helps teachers really observe reading behaviors of students. They're able to have a comprehension conversation and ask kids to summarize and to really see what they can do with text. And then we have unit assessments, which go along with our current curriculum. There are on-demand writing assessments where kids are given a certain amount of time to write in a certain genre. And then the performance assessments are in grades 3 and 4, and students are given multiple passages to read, and then they have questions that they need to answer in response to that. So we have a lot of data that we're going to be digging into and looking at to kind of inform our decisions. And then the rest of the process will really be digging into the high quality curriculum resources that are on DESE and through Curate and on Ed Reports, doing some field testing, so teachers will have a chance to try out some lessons and units in their classrooms, and then make a recommendation for resources that best meet our needs here in Wakefield. So that's our pre-K to 4 process and time frame.
Thanks, Lisa. Any other question? Yeah, go ahead.
Lisa, as you mentioned that we were doing, I think I heard you say dyslexia screening 3 times a year. I know that sort of some of the DESE today is putting out for public comment. They want to change their guidance to go to at least 2 times a year. So
yes.
So my understanding is that we're doing that. We're increasing that by like 50%.
Well, we've been doing it 3 times a year, and so I have to look through that guidance today. I know that in kindergarten, the recommendation has been 2 to 3 times because you don't want to identify kids too early. So I think we will make whatever shift we need to in terms of that. But we've just always, done the universal screening has happened fall, winter, and spring for K to 3 students.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The DIBELS screening is new.
That's good.
That's
Yeah.
gonna be new.
Yeah.
How are the screenings communicated to parents?
That's a good question. Yeah, Lisa, we should probably dig in a little bit more because our screen we've been shifting up our screeners, just trying to find the right one that gives us the right information. We had previously used AimsWeb, then we went to Rapid, and then Lisa's been doing a lot of work with teachers trying to figure out if we're getting the information we need. So Lisa, can you dig a little into the decision to bring DIBELS in and then how things might be communicated?
Yep. So we've been using the Lexia Rapid Screener for the last few years, and it gives us good big picture data, but the reading specialists and teachers felt that it didn't really hone in on the discrete skills that they needed to know to be able to really intervene with kids. So the DIBELS assessment has been around forever, and it's a tool that will always be on the DESE approved list. A lot of districts do use this. And it really, like in kindergarten, it assesses letter names, letter sounds, and phoneme segmentation. And so then based on those assessments, kids are, there are benchmark scores for every grade level and every time of the year that kids are compared against. In the past, we have not communicated those out to parents, to all parents. If based on that data, an intervention is going to be put in place with a reading specialist, then parents would be notified of that happening. But I know that Karen, myself, and Val Drinan, who is our elementary STEM coordinator, have been having conversations about what does that look like to kind of communicate that out to parents. And so that is something that we're having conversations about. But it is something that, parents can request. The timing of the assessments is typically right before parent conferences. So sometimes teachers will print out the reports and have them there to be able to share with parents and to be able to speak to. I think sometimes the reports are written in a way that if a teacher can have that conversation and explain it, I think that it's more clearly communicated. But we are currently looking at how we do that because of the fact that we're shifting to a new screener and thinking through what that looks like.
So just to recap, we're phasing out Lexia and going with just Dibbles, or we're using them both?
So,
So
go ahead,
Lex-
Lisa. Yep.
I was just going to say, so we're going to be keeping, so Lexia has two programs. There's Lexia Core 5, which is the program that kids used like during the pandemic where they at home could go on and practice their phonics skills, phonemic awareness skills. Lexia Rapid is just the assessment part of it. So we are going to continue to use that for grades 3 and 4 because it really digs into vocabulary and comprehension. But we just felt like that at K to 2, and we're going to actually bring it up to 3, that it does really give us more information to really support students.
The feedback that I got from another district that uses Dibbles is that for younger kids, they need to know their letters and sounds. And it's hard to say like a K student would actually know that to test appropriately. Did you get that feedback as well, or?
I have not, and I think that's part of why they recommend not necessarily like looking at when you assess kindergarten, that you don't necessarily, the beginning one might be a baseline, but it isn't something necessarily that you would use to assess risk because of what you're saying. Like this year, when we did the Lexia Rapid assessment at the beginning of the year, probably because we had a lot of kindergartners who maybe didn't have a preschool experience, we had a lot of kids that didn't know their letters or sounds. And so we were, about 30% of our students did. And at the end of the year, we had almost 85% of the kindergartners knew their letters and sounds, and they exceeded grade level expectations. So I think it's really about the purpose of it and making sure that we're not identifying students too early, but it does give teachers a baseline. But I have not had that feedback. There also are rules where if students don't know their letters or sounds, you don't continue the assessment. So it's not something that you would have kids sit for if they're not ready for it.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
Any other questions on?
I do
Pre-K
have
to
a
4.
question,
Yeah.
and this just, and pardon my ignorance, but it sounds like we've already moved to new curriculum. Like, are we still Lucy Calkins, or is that
Yeah,
something?
so right now we have units of study happening, but there's been supplemental resources as well, which, like Lisa said, Foundations has been a supplemental resource to basically address, I think, the gaps that have been identified in units of study. So that's been going on for years. So we've just been kind of trying to refine that piece, which we think we have enough information to do. So we're doing a Foundations reset. We're bringing it up to grade 3. But we're also going to be looking at other curriculum resources to address reading comprehension and writing as well, which right now is used through units of study.
Because what's Haggerty?
Haggerty is another phonological awareness. Do you want to expand on Haggerty a little bit more?
Oh, it's like Foundation, so we have.
It's going to be in pre-K through 2.
Okay.
Did I get that right, Lisa?
Yes, and so the phonemic awareness is really like the precursor to phonics, and so it's all oral and auditory, and so it's kids connecting sounds, and so it might be where you ask kids what's the first sound that you hear in the word mop, so it's all auditory, and it's really the initial step, and then phonics is then where it's like on paper. So this is something that we've never had, and it's such a need. So we're bringing that in, and it's literally 5 to 10 minutes a day that the teachers kind of do this, with the kids, and then they'll also have time to then do phonics. So it's kind of a yes and approach that we're taking right now. It's not necessarily an either or. And that's where I think as part of this review, like, yes, right now we're using Foundations and Haggerty, but, as we go through this review, we'll see, is there a curriculum that has these pieces all in it, or do we keep kind of what we're doing? So I think that's part of the process, but we are bringing in Haggerty and Foundations now because it is a need that we feel like we just can't wait on.
Yeah, that was my question. Are we eventually going to hopefully land on one curriculum that incorporates all these pieces, so we're not
Yeah.
paying for
Right.
3
I don't
different.
know
Yeah.
if there's any perfect curriculum, right?
Right.
And so, one of the things that I think that I want us to be cautious about is this notion of moving quickly for the sake of moving quickly, or adopting curriculum for the sake of adopting curriculum. And so many districts, jump into this space where they'll look at Curate, this is a highly rated curriculum, we need to adopt it. So, they often will kind of get backing from some type of literacy grant or something to that effect. And they'll just, and the hope is that by adopting new curriculum, that we're gonna get new outcomes, different outcomes. It's similar to this notion of when the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed updates their curriculum standards or their frameworks. Like, good standards does not necessarily equal good outcomes, right? Or different outcomes, right? As a system, we need to think about, what is the science of reading? What is the data? And so if you go back to the questions that were addressed early on here, right? Are we getting what we want to get? What does the data show in regard to our students that are sitting in front of us, in seats in front of us? How can we demonstrate and communicate effectively about how they're progressing in regard to reading, writing, speaking, and listening, right? And then how are we demonstrating that? How are we able to share that with parents? How are we able to kind of say, this is where our child is at, this is what we're going to do next in regard to what they need? And so to do those things, so, Kara made reference to this, we want, you need people, you need teachers to do this work, right? And too often, we kind of take an administrative approach to this, which is, it's about the change, it's about a curriculum cycle where we have a discrete timeline, so we just got to get this done or purchase this. And often when districts do that, we're watching this play out now, where everyone feels this pressure to kind of rush to make change. And we've seen this for a few decades now, where, really lasting change has to be about students, teachers, and curriculum leaders, right? Before it's about anything else, right? And that's why I think, Kara's approach and her approach with the curriculum leadership is really, I think, the way to go. And I can't, thank Lisa and Margaret enough, and Kara as well, for her leadership in this space, because it takes some fortitude. It takes some backbone to not feel like you need to rush to change right now, because that so many people are just rushing to change, right? And I think that our outcomes are going to be better over time. Lisa pointed this out earlier. If you listen to what Lisa said, if this will be recorded, if you look back at what Lisa said, Lisa's talking like a clinician, right? In regard to, how technically do you need to teach reading, and what do assessments tell us? And we can't read too deeply into, assessments too early to then have a knee-jerk reaction. I don't know if I'm making sense. The point that I'm hoping that you can take away is that the presentation tonight in regard to the parts of the puzzle that we're putting together and the people that are involved, Margaret, Lisa, Val Drynan, and other curriculum coordinators, are essential to the parts of the whole in really creating structures that can support students in their needs. So that's a quick, but.
Yeah, we're trying to, definitely just do the work to set the stage so that whatever we decide is consistent. That's the huge goal, that we're making really good decisions with all of the right information, and then there's a consistent approach across all four of our elementary schools, which is, I think, why we're starting with the principals, because they really need to be informed. What should you be looking for when you walk into a literacy block at every elementary classroom? What should your conversations be like with teachers? We really need them, and they want to be leading this work. It's like I said, it's probably some of their most important work as elementary principals. But, yep, Stephen?
Thinking back to when we were looking at the math curriculum and the change in that space, one thing that really struck out that I saw value in it, and it just sticks with me, is the idea that some of the concepts as they were approached were able to be looked at from different perspectives and different abilities, so that you could have sort of those students that were sort of struggling with concepts in the same classroom with students that were really advancing in those spaces, and they could both sort of sit in the same classroom and think over a problem and kind of come with different approaches, but be in the same space. And what we talked about at that time was the ability to have that close the gap a little bit between our students of those levels. Is there space for that as it relates to the ELA curriculum?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Lisa, you're nodding. I know you want to jump in here. Go ahead. I'm gonna have
No,
you.
I was just going to say the three buckets that Desi put out with the foundational skills, the engaging with complex text and the writing. I think that part of their goal with those buckets was to create that space. So engaging with complex text, really making sure that all kids have those opportunities to engage with complex text and being supported and having conversations with all students together and interacting with each other and interacting with the same texts. So I think that is really one of the goals here. So I'm anticipating that is going to be a focus when we look at ELA as well. And I think that the members of the team, when we have reading specialists, special educators, and an EL teacher on the team, I think that we have good representation of people that know these kids and know what is needed for all kids when we're thinking of ELA curriculum.
I think also just digging in around the need and the ways to structure small group learning within all of our literacy blocks as well. Just that importance across all of the grade levels, not just in K and 1, but the need for small group with really specific reading strategies happening across all levels. So we'll dig in a lot to the value of small group instruction and how to build that in as well as part of the process. Right, I know everyone's probably getting tired, and we just have to. Poor Margaret's been sitting there patiently. We kind of knew this is you get talking, and it's a lot related to ELA when you're talking K to 12. So, are we ready to jump 5 to 12? All right, Margaret.
So,
Are you awake?
yeah,
I'm kidding.
As we were thinking about this curriculum review, Lisa and I met a lot to figure out how we can align it, but so that we're looking at the same things, but those things look very different at secondary than they do at elementary and kindergarten. So we have kind of the same structure as far as what we're doing, but it's going to look a little different as far as how we're doing it. So I'm going to try to be really brief and just go over how that's going to look at the high school. So our goals at the high school are the same: to explore instructional strategies that will benefit all students. And we're going to do that through a book study and collaboration time. And I think I just want to kind of hit on one of the things that Doug mentioned. We're really looking, I think we have some really solid things going on that we've developed in the past 2 years curriculum-wise. We're going to look at if that's meeting our goal and where we might have gaps. But we're really going to focus on instructional strategies. And when you have the right tools, how do you utilize them so that you're meeting the needs of all of the students in front of you? So a big part of our curriculum review is going to be looking at those instructional strategies. We're going to be updating and refining our curriculum guides as we learn and discuss. We're going to evaluate the resources we're currently using. In terms of those 3 areas that Lisa's going to be looking at: foundational skills, engaging with complex text, and writing development. We're going to be creating that common vision statement, evaluating some data, and then making some recommendations for what we really want to use with fidelity in the following school year. So we're going to be exploring instructional strategies through a book study, and I feel so lucky that all of the teachers that I really am dealing with only teach English, aside from 5th grade who teaches English and social studies. So I'll be able to have more people included because I can utilize the PD time I have with the whole 5 through 12 group, department meetings with the whole 5 through 12 group, in order to make sure all English teachers are included this work rather than just, a select committee. So really every single English teacher 5 through 12 is going to be heavily involved in all of the work for this curriculum review, which I think is going to be great as far as making sure all teachers are on board and feel like their voice is heard. So during our half-day PDs this year, we're going to be diving into the book Cultivating Genius. And it's already divided into 3 parts. It's an equity framework for culturally and historically responsive teaching. However, we kind of got the overview of that in the last 2 years. Rather than abandoning that work, we want to continue that work, but kind of really look at it specifically through the lens of what is good teaching practice that helps every student in your classroom find success, and this book really provides a framework for that. So we're going to be spending half of our PD days, and Carrie, you can go to the next slide.
Oh, sorry.
So we're going to be having half of our book days where they're going to be given time to read and discuss sections of this book. And then the other half are days when they collaborate. So it's going to be every other. So one PD will be reading and discussing, and the next PD will be like, how do we take what we read and we discussed and implement it into our curriculum guides and into our unit plan. So the materials that we're really going to be looking for in our three major focus areas, what these skills look like at the high school and middle school level. So the foundational skills, grammar and vocabulary, engaging with complex text, reading comprehension analysis, and then the three areas of writing that we're really going to look at is organization, development, and convention. These are some things that we're already trying or have already put in place to experiment with for next year. I won't read through all of them. One that I'm really excited about trying at the middle school is the Lexia Power Up program, which really is great at differentiating and providing students with appropriate challenges for where they are engaging with vocabulary, grammar, and reading comprehension. At the high school, Membean has been great for vocabulary development and provides us vocabulary data, so we're going to continue to experiment with that. Common Lit, I mentioned earlier in our other presentation, has been really great for gauging reading comprehension data, especially at the high school. I think we need to dig a little deeper at the middle school, which is why we're going to experiment with Lexia Power Up. And then for our writing, we've created common rubrics that are used for grades 5 through 12 so that every student every year doesn't have to learn new language. They're using consistent rubrics and developing along the lines of standards in terms of those rubrics, and that's also something that we're hoping to move eventually into social studies, so they're not only seeing them across years, but across content areas. And we're measuring students' progress through formative and summative writing benchmarks at the beginning and end of every term or trimester using those rubrics. That's kind of some of the data that we're gathering, and I'm super excited about a potential writing program for grades 5 through 12 that actually could trickle down into to the elementary grades too, if it's going well, called Empower, because I think a huge gap that we see is we have not had a consistent writing program, and this writing program does a beautiful job of providing kids scaffolding and structure, but also making them kind of independent thinkers along the lines of organizing and developing their writing, rather than just giving them a prompt and saying go. It teaches them a process. So the only thing that all teachers 5 through 12 won't be doing is kind of really diving into data, and that's going to be a group of teachers, hopefully one from each grade level 5 through 12, as well as a special education teacher, who will really dig into looking at our data and seeing if we're really addressing what needs to be addressed. So we'll be using the Common Lit beginning of the year and end of year reading comprehension assessments, looking at that data from last year and this year. The writing benchmark data that we've gathered using the Wakefield Analytics dashboard, and of course the ELA MCAS scores. So those will be really the three data points that a separate group of teachers will be looking at and bringing back to the whole group. And then this is just kind of to wrap up something I know that we feel really strongly about as an ELA department already moving forward. And this is a quote from the book that the teachers will be reading, Cultivating Genius. Literacy is not just about reading words on the page, it also carries some sort of action. In other words, reading and writing are transformative acts that improve self and society. And that's it for secondary.
Thanks, Margaret. I did want to just add one other point of consideration as we're going through the process with 5 through 12. Margaret and Megan Webb and I met with the 5th grade ELA teachers a couple weeks ago, just to kind of start the conversation of how they fit into this process, because they really are, technically an elementary grade level, even you could argue 6, but housed in the middle school, and just trying to think about that grade level, particularly around the transition years and how we might bring that group into some of the elementary discussions, into some of the conversations around resources and how they might also continue to work with their middle school teams. I just wanted to bring that up because it's just another thing that we're thinking about as part of this process. Any questions for Margaret? Yep. Sorry, Rudy.
Hi, for the Common Lit beginning of the year and the end of the year assessments, were
Yeah.
those given last year, or is this following year the first year we're going to be using those?
No,
in
we
high
actually
school?
give, Common Lit has I know, Kevin, that you had mentioned you guys use it. It has a separate package that has an assessment series.
Yeah.
And so we give actually beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year, and we started that last year. So this
Okay.
year, we're kind of be assessing, like, do those results tell us what we really want to know? Are we happy with them, or do we need something different? So yeah, we'll have all 3 from last year to look at.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to look at those like 3 data points, like
Yeah.
like those exams, and then see if there's like correlation with the writing benchmark, and then obviously the MCAS scores.
Yeah.
If you could see like a thread linking those 3 sets of the data points.
Yeah.
So you did give those last year too. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Are there specific goals, or is it just to see improvement?
For the ELA review?
Right.
Well, I think there are specific goals just in terms of making sure that we have high quality materials in all of our classrooms, that we're using those with consistency, that we're just continuing the work of having guarantees from grade level to grade level that we can expect that our students will know and understand certain things and have certain skills from grade level to grade level. So I think it's just all about accountability and just managing, monitoring that across the district to make sure that we're aligned K through 12, and that we've talked a lot about thinking about the components of a core literacy block, thinking about best instructional practices that we should be seeing in all of our classrooms, and then what are the best resources to help us get there. I think we want to make things easier for our teachers. We want to make sure that they have those high quality resources so they're not reinventing the wheel or feeling like they have to come up with their own things. So yeah, I think those are all, Margaret and Lisa, if I missed anything, but I think those are the specific goals that will help drive us.
Just one big goal, I know for 5 through 12 that we've really focused on working on this year and we want to continue work on next year is specifically with writing the development piece. So thoroughly developing your ideas in your writing and not just saying boom, 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 moving on, but really thoroughly developing those ideas. I think in using the common rubrics and on our MCAS scores, that's kind of been the one glaring thing that stood out. So that's something that we've really consciously worked on this year. So we're hoping to see an improvement next year and to keep working on improving that. So I know that's definitely one goal for secondary.
So is the idea, I'm trying to get to some kind of measurement thing that's not subjective, I guess, really. So obviously MCAS scores, some of these other measures are very objective. And then the question is, if there's not a goal to increase it by 20%, whatever may be the goal, is there a sort of a goal to at least be in the top quartile of the Middlesex League schools or something of that? So it'll be great to see improvement, but we also need to know when we get there, perhaps in some ways. So that's what I'm curious about.
I think that's something that we're monitoring all the time in terms of our standing with not only our DART districts, but local districts as well. And I think MCAS is definitely something that we look to and look at our student achievement. But we're also looking internally as well. We're looking at our special ed referrals. Are those on the rise? Are they valid, or do we have an issue across our general curriculum that we're maybe not exposing to students to what we should, teaching things on the same timeline that we should. So there's some internal data points as well. But yeah, I think, we're definitely looking at our standing and wanting to bring that up.
And it's probably going to be a multitude. It's not one thing that tells you everything, but maybe a combination of things that seem to both be in a certain quarter, whatever may be the case. It's just sort of to have something a bit more specific, I guess, to help us know we're getting there. Even though intuitively we may say we are, it's always nice to have some form of measurement where possible. Thanks.
So will this be similar to like the math review? I remember when we had the math review, I think it came down to like 3 curriculum and then you went with, is that what?
Yep.
Will that the end goal be with the LA as well?
That's our goal. We're trying to identify 2 to 3
Yeah.
to narrow down that we would, talk about with the committee, and then what we call field testing as part of the review, and have different teachers pilot those within their classrooms over, a couple-week period of time, and then come back and reassess, and then talk about the pros and cons, and then come to consensus at the end.
So I have two hopes through this. Is one is, and I'm sure everyone has the same, that we're not waiting to see anymore. I know in the elementary school, I've heard from many parents or have concerns about their student, and they're like, well, let's just wait and see how they do this year. And by the end of the year, they haven't done well at all. And so you've lost in second and third grade. These are really important years, and I don't want any parent or student to have to go through that. So I don't know if that's possible in some of these reviews to go. And the other thing is, we do have a pocket of students who are just literal, who have problems inferencing or relating to characters. So I didn't know if we could pull in maybe some speech or psychologists to the special education team to work with that group of students, so we don't leave them behind either.
Those are all good points. I think some of the work that the principals have really focused on this year is their data team process. Lisa touched on some of the elementary data points that would be considered at these meetings, but trying to improve that process at all of the buildings around, not having a wait and see approach, really monitoring students in a timely way and responding as urgently as possible. I think the work that we did with the reading specialists across the district this year has tried to zone in on that. We say the lingo in education, like tier 1 is general education, tier 2 might be a supplemental support, and then tier 3 it would be more of a special education route. But reading specialists usually come in to provide that supplemental support, and just trying to dig into entry criteria, who gets referred to the reading specialist, how long do they stay with the reading specialist, what are the specific interventions that are being targeted, and how are those decisions being made, which really should be rooted in the data team process. So I think that work will help with that as well. And also, like Lisa said, she's done a ton of work just trying to identify assessments that just give us the information that we need so that we can respond. So I know that there's been a lot of conversation there.
Yeah,
If that answers your question, Amy.
Yeah,
I
no,
can move
thank
on.
you.
Okay.
Yeah, and speaking to Amy's point, it kind of made me think of what Doug said earlier, in that when we talk about curriculum, I agree 100% with Doug that
Yeah.
you don't want to rush it, because if you rush it, you might think that this is failing when you haven't given it a chance, and the assessment that you're using, the data isn't, and you're giving up too early, right? So I agree, but with what Amy said about if you have a kid in the second grade or a kid in third grade, from the instructional piece, if the kid is struggling and that data, that whatever instructional data is out there that the teacher has, if it's not getting to the parent, that's a huge concern too. So it's like so I think that the challenge is, and I know we talked about this like a month ago, the challenge is when we do that first assessment, how can we communicate that data in a useful way, in a way that actually is effective, so that parents would know.
Right.
And I think that's
I
really
think that
the
we
key.
talked about that. I know
Yeah.
Lisa and Val and I have definitely talked about that at certain points
Yeah.
with principals as well. Just how are we giving parents the information they need to be able to not only support at home, or if they choose to supplement, or just to have a good understanding, so there's no surprises along the way in terms of student progress. And
Yeah.
I think we're all picturing a next step to this process is looking at our elementary report card and analyzing that a little bit more to see if it's giving our parents the information that they need and that they can work with. So that's something that we're thinking about too for future.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Anything else?
There's a lot here.
I know. We try and we scale it back. I know.
Scale back version.
That's a lot.
Super important, like,
It
of
is.
anything, if you can't read, you can't do math. No.
You can't do anything. Right?
It's really important. I
Yeah.
think we just wanted you to know that we're taking it super seriously, and it is a big undertaking that will involve a lot of people.
So there will be incremental reports, kind of updating kind of where we're at. Please be thinking about questions that you might have, right? Or that parents might bring to you. You know, I mean, several things have come up this evening around screeners, around how are we communicating to parents around, you know, how children are progressing. You know, Kara just made a really, really important point, which is parents will often ask, how can I help? Right? And we need to be able to think about how we might be able to address that question, right? And to support students and excuse me, support parents and to give them some insights into ways that they can help. So, you know, Amy, you the points that you just ended with are really about the student, right? And so curriculum is a part of this conversation, but it is, you know, the curriculum's the guide, right? The teachers are executing kind of the plans, but the teachers are the bridge. They're kind of the directors in understanding what students need, right? And so it's really trying to connect with our curriculum coordinators and our teachers to kind of really understand how we're communicating that and what that communication loop looks like. You know, we've used some jargon here tonight around tier 2 and tier 1, and we're going to focus on tier 1. When we come back for our updates, we'll kind of break some of the stuff out and hopefully share, for example, in a class, this is what it might look like. This is what it might feel like. Students might see this for a text. When we say access to complex text, this is what it looks like, right? And so we will share more examples and break it down in a way, hopefully, that our viewing audience and the committee will have kind of a better sense of understanding, right? And so it almost challenges us to really be good teachers while we're in this space, you know, in kind of the explanations that we're providing. But we're very, very fortunate to have Lisa and Margaret describing this work. So thank you so much, Lisa, Margaret.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Lisa and Margaret.
Absolutely.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you.
Much appreciated. You're coming back in 2 weeks. We'll see you.
No, enjoy the summer.
I'm joking. So, thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
They're so good. We're very fortunate to have the curriculum people that we have. So moving ahead in kind of the superintendent section of the agenda. So we have shared handbooks with the committee, and so we would like to give time and space for the committee to review those handbooks. If you don't have them, the look on your face, Kevin, says you don't have them. Do you not have them?
Oh, no, those,
You sent them up, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope they're good.
Yes, sir.
I think- Yeah, I know. I think we're gonna sit down with them in the policy subcommittee.
Excellent.
And just align them to sort of what exists now within our policy books and
Great.
making sure, not to take anything away from, I think this will be great, seeing all the work that's gone into them. But I know there's so much work. We're just gonna, there's 4 handbooks. We're gonna just break them out, give people time with each one of them instead of looking at them
Right.
in a stack.
Yeah, it's
So
a
this
lot.
is earlier than we've ever gotten them to committee. It's still later than we had planned. So, you know, we want to give time and space for the Policy Communication Subcommittee and the larger committee to take a look at those and to dig into them. When you are done giving us feedback in those spaces, plural, we will be sharing those with council to go through to work on final edits and final drafts before we get them back out to schools.
What's the target date, Doug?
To get them back to schools, August,
Beginning of August?
first week in
Okay,
August,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and the formatting, don't worry about it. As people are making editing, we're just gonna, we've been working with Diana Ho, our high school library media specialist. She's excellent, and she's helped us with the formatting. So she said when everyone's done with their edits, she'll just take them back and clean them up. And
When do
have
you
them
need
ready.
it back from us? When do you need our input back to you?
end of July,
So do we vote on this?
Not tonight.
not
No,
tonight.
I know, not tonight.
So,
Do we have to put them on the table, then wait 2 weeks and vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask another question?
of course.
You said they're going out to the school on August 1st, but you want them from us at the end of July?
So, well, I mean, we need to have
need 'em
them
earlier.
completed by the end of July.
Right, so you need them from us.
Right, and so we're gonna get
mid-July
them,
or
council should take probably a week or two to do. So if we get them to council beginning of August, that gives us mid-August, it gives us a little bit of runway to kind of get them back. And so that's where we are there.
So let me just hop in for a sec, because Steve and I discussed this earlier with regard to timing and having the policy subcommittee take a appropriate view. And so first of all, I think we want to thank Doug and Kara for getting them out as early as you have. Because we have been having, sometimes we've been scrambling in September to do this work. So really, kudos to the handbook team for getting this. So what I think we want to do is, from tonight, we will lay the handbook sort of on the table as a policy matter, ask the policy subcommittee to specifically review them. Certainly, everyone is entitled, and not only entitled, responsible for doing the same. And then I think we'll have maybe a sort of a report, subcommittee report at the July meeting, with an eye on completing the work, as Doug said, for the end of August, and then a vote at
End
the
of July.
first.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
What did I say?
You said August.
Oh, my mistake. Getting it back to Doug and the team for the end of July, getting all the feedback done. So we would then vote at the August meeting, the
Yes.
first August meeting.
Which is the 16th.
Right.
Good.
Okay?
And that works for your timeline?
We'll make it work.
Okay.
We'll make it work. We'll
Well,
get
we
it.
don't want to waste all the effort you've done by dragging our feet
No,
either, so,
we'll get
yeah.
it back and forth to council before the 16th.
Okay.
So
Oh,
that
okay.
everyone gets a final look, and we'll kind of go from there. We'll just kind of expedite in a different way.
And Stephen and members of the policy subcommittee, you folks you'll need to meet it probably once or twice in the first couple weeks of July, right? Is that fair to say? In order to sort of kickstart this to.
We already have
sort of
one
meet-
meeting in the books.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So, okay.
Summer
Great.
reading.
There you go, sitting on the beach.
Good
What more
beach,
would you want?
good beach
Looking
reading, yeah,
through
good
student
Paris.
handbooks.
Paris, that's right.
There you go.
learn a ton.
So,
It's a long flight.
Just need network so I can use the hyperlinks. That's all.
no problem.
There you go.
And so, just an update in regard to the new logo. Amy Wall kind of preempted some of what was going to be reported this evening. So, just in regard to ending the school year, so we were waiting to get information back from council, right? So we absolutely could have gotten a survey done, right? It wasn't about rushing to get it done. We were waiting to hear back from council in regard to the three logo images that we were considering. And so Amy alluded to that feedback. And so we're also thinking about really being thoughtful about having access to eighth graders. Now, the last few weeks while we were waiting to hear back from council, eighth grade was participating at Chaos in the Common and just a number of, fun things that I really don't know that we would have had access to the eighth grade in a way that I would have liked, right? I don't want someone to say, well, geez, I really wish that I had known, or I wish I had participated. We'll make space so that students can participate thoughtfully and really kind of seeing a logo and thinking about what they might like for their logo. One of the things that I just want to put language out there that I think is critical. This is for students, right? This is for students. And I know adults are passionate in this space, but this is for students. Students are the ones that are going to be wearing their logo. And so as much as, I might be partial to one or the other, I have to push myself to realize that, this is not about what I might like personally. This is really about what students might want, on their gear, right? This is going to appear in different places. So I think giving the time to this in a thoughtful way so that we can hear from students, I think is important, right? So more to follow there, yes.
Sorry, Doug. So question about Amy's comment, only because she's not here, so we should at least get it out there.
Sure.
About kind of putting things on a hiatus until that happens. is that even necessary? Or, in other words, are we ordering uniforms now for the fall that we have to make a decision on what we're gonna put on them? Or is it something if we decide in September, gives us plenty of time to order uniforms for whatever?
So
Just
there are gonna be
curious.
questions, like we order decals for helmets.
Yep.
So for football,
Yeah.
right? So
Easily come off and on.
they
so,
easily come
yeah,
off and on,
yeah.
but that's gonna be a question straight away, right? You know, Coach Rafferty will ask us,
Right.
Doug, what do you want us, or they'll ask Brendan Kent, what should we be thinking about in regard to a logo for that space? So, yeah, I mean, those are things we need to think about, but in regard to ordering gear, I don't, we've managed so far, right? And so I don't think that we need to rush, or, I don't think we need to rush. In fact, I think that would be a mistake, right, at this point.
I also believe that Brendan, when he was here 2 weeks ago, he had said that they just use just Warriors, just the words on a lot
Yeah.
of their gear that he was just ordering in the
Did he say
meantime.
he used the one that,
So-
option two?
so
No, not even that,
No,
just literally the word Warriors.
He actually wore a T-shirt.
Yeah, he wore a
Oh, that's
T-shirt
right.
that
He wore a
night.
representative T-shirt of the
Yeah.
type of things they're ordering.
It was literally just the word Warriors.
Really not logo-esque, but.
So it really isn't, obviously stickers are no big issue, it could peel off, put another one on. If we were gonna order a bunch of jerseys for football or hockey or
Yeah.
whatever, obviously that could be problematic
I will
potentially.
double check with Brendan.
That's
I
fine.
am 99% sure that we're not rushing to
Perfect.
order hockey jerseys right now that
Yeah.
we're
Exactly.
not
yeah.
gonna be able to wear.
Right.
And that, like, so that's not the goal.
Cool, just wanna make sure.
Of course.
Yep, thank you,
Of course.
appreciate it. Yep.
So the other thing that I want to just share with the committee is this notion of, needing to reconvene the committee, the student committee and the adults. I don't know if we're going to have access to those students in
Well,
July.
some of them are graduating. you know,
Some
they're gonna be
are
out doing
I don't know
their
if we're
own
going to have
thing,
access to those students.
Yeah.
And so, this notion of, we need to reconvene the committee again in July. So I will tell you, so we have, this is the 4th of July coming this weekend. The following week is the superintendent's conference where Kara and I will be at that conference. And so Christine will also be kind of in and out that week. So the next 2 weeks is going to be, us closing out the school year for the fiscal year, and also doing some professional development. So, we will give an update on the 12th, but I don't know that there's going to be an opportunity to reconvene that committee in the next 2 weeks. So I don't want to disappoint anybody, but I do want people to manage expectations. So, Kevin, did you have something?
No, I was gonna ask, because I just read the lawyer's report about the logo, so I was gonna ask if there was anything that was gonna be ordered with that option 2 logo, if that had already happened, but you just answered that.
So I can check with Brendan to
Yeah.
see, and absolutely give
You
an
don't want it to be a
update.
throwaway, obviously, they don't wanna waste their money.
No,
Yeah,
I don't, I think we've been trying to maintain until a decision is made for quite some time.
Yep, got it.
But I think that the big question is going to be decals for helmets. I think that'll be the first question, right? Because they'll want to they will not put them on for preseason, but when they get ready to open, they will want it to kind of know,
They want
and they'll
something.
want to order, et cetera. So there'll be more information forthcoming there.
So from a timeline perspective, Doug, are you thinking so I do agree, having the 8th graders involved makes a lot of sense, that you would do it right at the beginning of school? Is that the plan, if you're gonna do
In terms
something?
of the survey?
Survey, yes. Or would
I
you do it
do,
earlier, or?
I do think that's what we would like to do, yes.
Okay. You don't want to do it till they come back from school? 'cause
No, I do
I'm
think
not sure
we-
what the response is gonna be
No,
like. Oh, do you? I'm sorry.
No, I do think we need to have students in school.
Right, that's what I
Yeah,
was thinking too, yeah. You're not gonna get the
Right,
response
not late
rate
July,
otherwise.
not late August,
Yeah,
right,
they're
because
on
people will be
vacation.
on vacation.
But we're not making another committee, we're just doing the survey. Or is that with the 8th graders? Is
I
that-
want to
is that
talk
the-
with Brendan about needs first, and then then, I don't think we're gonna have access to the committee
Right.
that did the work, as it had existed,
Right.
Kevin. And so, that's where we're at.
I don't think we.
No, I'm just thinking about like the last meeting, we said there'd be a survey and then we'd vote.
Yeah.
And now there was no survey because everything was so busy. So I would just assume there'd be a survey at some point and then we vote,
Yeah,
right?
So we're thinking that's September.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and no, I could have forgotten.
The survey in September. And then we
Right,
go.
so
We
it's
haven't
not
done
just
a
because we
survey
were so
before.
busy, we were also waiting to hear back from council because there was
Right.
this question about copyright and trademark,
Good,
et
Eileen,
cetera.
sorry.
Yes.
Do you want to go first? Okay. I have a question. So if, for some reason, option 2
Yeah.
is, there is a copyright issue and we don't feel comfortable moving forward with that,
Yeah.
are we left with options 1 and 3 to vote? Like, those are our only 2 options?
I don't know, I
According
think
to
that-
the,
I would say, technically, they were supposed to come up with 3 new designs, and you could certainly argue option 2 was a new design from what they decided to get rid of,
Right.
in theory, but.
yeah.
There is
Yeah.
actually no provision in the policy that says that it has to be a new design. It just asks for designs.
Oh,
There
okay,
is
that's good.
nowhere in
That's
that
good.
language does
Good.
it say new.
Good, yeah, I did not,
But
thank you.
to your point, if
That's
one
what-
of them is sort of pulled out for whatever reason,
Right.
I believe you're left with 2.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we need to come to a place where we're comfortable and we're moving forward. Because we have to, I may be so bold, we have to bring this to an end. And while, whatever we decide, in the regal we, whether it's the 7 of us with the superintendent's guidance, whoever we is, there are going to be people that are disappointed. So, and I don't say that to be glib nor disrespectful, but I think we need to, we're at a place where the recommendations that came off the committee that was assembled, they provided us with 3 logos. We can argue that logo 2 was old or new or in the middle or an interim, whatever, they still produced it. In theory, the committee could have brought back some other, logo and said, this is still our recommendation. So I think what seems to be on the table, and sort of a summarizing, is the appreciation that we provided direction to the superintendent and the high school principal to produce such a survey. It was their appreciation for the last 2 weeks of school. I think it made perfectly lots of sense for giving everything that was happening, that we don't introduce a new, especially potentially controversial thing. So the survey is still an expectation of the administration. That will be conducted in September somewhere where the high school administration feels it's appropriate to do so. And at some point after that, you'll report back the survey results, and then we will take the survey results into consideration, whatever that means, and we'll vote on one of the 3 choices that is before us.
Or we may be voting on 2 of the choices.
Correct.
If we found
Correct.
something that makes us uncomfortable from a copyright
But
infringement.
at the same token,
Yeah.
I think we need to take all of the inputs, right? I don't think we need to take, at this point, anything off the table.
Right.
We have guidance from our attorney.
Yep.
The next piece of guidance that we're seeking is student input. And I think that if the students come back and love option 2, the 7 of us can decide our attorney thinks that's a bad idea.
So we go with option.
So we disregard.
Yeah, we'll go with the next
These are
highest
decisions
one.
that
Yeah.
we're elected to make. So let's just be prepared to do that. I think I hopped in on your shoes there, Amy, so I apologize for doing that.
That's all right.
So,
I just was similar, like, what was gonna be on the survey at this point, and I don't know if I interpreted the attorney's letter correctly, but the last sentence sounded like, well, you could use it, or you couldn't use it. Like, it didn't really,
It wasn't conclusive.
I was like, I hope we didn't pay a lot of money for that.
Typical attorney document.
So,
Well, but you know
we
what?
didn't pay enough. If you want an opinion, it's an extra paragraph.
But you know what? We had to ask the question.
Right.
no, I.
We did.
So we had to ask the question. To not ask the question, even with I agree with you. It was kind of
Great.
interpretive. It was a gray answer, right? And I would have liked something a little bit more definitive. But it was, yes, you could, or you could not,
Yeah,
right?
You might want to,
So-
it wasn't exactly conclusive.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And but again, I think we need to step back. So I don't think that the committee needs to reconvene. The committee's done their job. We followed the policy. So, so happy to follow up with Amy Wall and talk about what she feels wasn't followed. Or she could even come to a policy and communication subcommittee, and we could talk about it, right? I think I would welcome that feedback. And so, but again, Tom's words, we need to make a decision on this.
Yeah.
Yes.
And be able to move on and let people move forward. Anyway, that's where we're at. There'll be some more
Can I just-
information on July 12th.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I interrupt. I just wanted to add one thought. Having, read that memo a couple times, as I'm sure we all have, from the memo being from the attorneys, my interpretation was there was a bit more clarity, I think, than we may be giving, them credit for. I think there was some definitiveness around what likely a fact finder would see. And then the attorney said the very high unlikeliness that Ohio State or anyone is going to invest any time, money, resource in tracking down Wakefield Memorial High School in Wakefield. So I think there's a little bit of, you could do it because you probably won't get caught. I'm not sure that's our
but it's
best
funny.
course of action.
But it's funny.
But that was my, my piece on that, my read.
It's funny, maybe we as a committee should review the text here. And so I say that because my takeaway was there were two case laws, two kind of cases cited where colleges had a concern when high schools were using their logo or their trademark. And they were one-for-one names and symbols.
Everything, yeah.
Right?
Notre
They
Dame
use,
at
they
one
use,
point,
they
yeah.
use two?
That's right.
Right, so Notre Dame, in terms of the Irishmen, I think
Identical.
they had a high school that used the exact replica of that kind of image, and then the other was the Longhorns in Texas, right? So their citations are the same, right? And so this idea that a W with Warriors through it is a one-for-one, an O, a zero, not a zero, excuse me,
An O.
Ohio for O, and I just am not making that connection. But again, whatever we think through here, this is for kids, right? This is for kids. They're gonna buy clothing with these images on it, and they're gonna have helmets with their images on it, and so hockey jerseys with these images on it, and so we just want to. This isn't different than being a parent and potentially buying your child something they don't like, right? Oh, you're gonna love it, right? No, I hate it. So we just need to think about this. This is for kids.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll leave it there.
And I couldn't agree more, Doug, and I think we all do, that I think if there's one thing that this committee and even the former committee were very consistent on, was the absolute expectation for student voice. The student voice to be participating. This is regardless of when the logo was, regardless of what logo it was and when it was used, it was always driven by student appreciation for their pride and what they were wearing to represent their town. And I think if we don't waffle on that, which I don't believe we have, I think we will remain, we will land on a place that produces a result that are going to be appreciated by most. So we'll continue the survey. We have one piece of input we've asked superintendent to ask our attorney for feedback. We have that. Keep that aside. And then we'll have a second piece of information, meaning the survey data comes September, and then we take that action.
Yeah, I think we could ask 5 attorneys for their opinion, we'd probably get 7 opinions out of it, but, so.
That would cost us more. I think we'll go with one we have.
So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting information, but ultimately we have to decide what we're okay with, so.
Yeah, that's exactly it. What are we comfortable with as a committee or a group? Other than that, I'm done with my remarks. If I can add one more thing.
Sure.
The director of communication for Wakefield, Jen McDonald, had just put out a note and just wanted to asked us if we would be kind enough to remind anyone that might be watching this late that tomorrow evening at 6:30 there is a Vision 2030 it's a public forum tomorrow evening. It starts at 6:30, and this is a virtual meeting that will be held to just inform the Vision 2030 initiative that really looks at the town's future physical and economic development based on vision and goals. And so if you are interested and you'd like to tune in, that information in the Zoom link can be found on the Wakefield, the town Wakefield website. So,
Doug, if I can, only because I was on the committee.
yes, sir.
So the committee was formed, gotta be a year ago anyway.
Yeah.
But that was really just broad. What do we want to do? What's our purpose? So it was a fact finding as much as anything else. I suspect what this meeting is to try to narrow down their focus on what they're actually going to move forward with.
I think,
Is that right?
tomorrow's meeting is going to focus on housing and development.
One of the categories. Okay. Yep. Thanks, Stephen.
Good. Thank you so much, and that's it for me.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Item number 12, budget items.
Great. Good evening, everyone. As Doug just spoke about, this is the last week of the fiscal year, so it's a little busy in the accounting office. But the report you have in front of you tonight is through May. So we're not quite done with June or the fiscal year or transfers or anything. But this report shows you at the end of May, we still had about 1.4% left of the budget. Where right now, what we're doing is looking at finishing out encumbrances. All that $7 million worth of payroll encumbrances was wiped out through June payrolls. And right now, we're just looking at any orders that haven't come in, any things that we need to finish out the year, and possibly get us through summer school. So I know Tom will always ask if that budget will be liquidated, and it will in fact be liquidated by the end of June.
Get us through summer school, Christine?
Yeah, we have to get some orders in because things are so backed up. We need, summer school starts July 11th, so materials that we need, we have to order now.
Right, so we'd have to encumber them at that point
Yep.
in time. Got
And
it.
we're
Okay.
also using our grant money to do a lot of that as well. Our Title I, our two special ed grants. As you can see, the balances are pretty much wiped out. The one that still has a balance is Metco, but we're allowed to carry forward some of that money into next year.
How are you feeling about the 1.4%? Is it going to be enough?
Yes, it'll be
Yeah.
enough. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It'll be enough.
Bottom line, I guess, yeah.
Bottom line is what it is.
Coast across the finish line.
And the revolving accounts, we still have a healthy budget for school lunch, but just keep in mind, we have two large projects that are still coming. We're gonna do the Doyle Kitchen. We're still encumbering all of that materials with, we went out to bid for contractors and supplies, and we're ordering a new walk-in freezer for the Woodville School. So that's also coming up, and we have one more payment for circuit breaker. So those are the financials through May. Does
Christine,
anyone?
can I talk about the school lunch thing for just because
Absolutely,
we
yeah.
talked this
Go
morning?
right ahead.
So the initial intent is the program we're going to stop, so the food pantry was going to step in and start providing food in lieu of having a federally approved program as well. And then we heard there might be that they extend it. It doesn't sound like that's really going to happen. The challenge thus far that the food pantry's been having is not many families have reached out to start to access the services yet. It was a handful, maybe 8 or 10 families. So they're trying to find other ways of getting the word out so that the people understand they still have an option with the food pantry where they perhaps don't have it through the high school cafeteria program. So that's in process, just FYI.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that up, Mike.
So if I can jump in, not in regard to Christine's report, but Kara, do we want to do the calendar when Christine is done?
We did, yeah. We just were hoping to just make these final revisions to the calendar so parents could plan, you know, if they're making any summer plans. We just had the two minor proposed changes. One, removing the second open house date on the Galvin calendar. They want to repeat as they did this year with the one night for all grade levels on September 29th for their open house, just in line with the other schools being one night. And then we wanted to move the May half day. Right now, on the current approved, it's on May 17th. And with knowing the MCAS window now for the high school, that falls on a high school MCAS day, which just makes it challenging. So we would like to move the May half-day to May 10th to avoid the MCAS window. So it was just those two minor shifts, but I know parents of young kids plan out the half-days for the year, and I just thought it would be good to have it finalized and updated. But happy to answer any questions.
Well, I'm going to make a motion, then we'll open it up.
Please.
Can I, that's good. I know I didn't see an answer to the question that Amy had asked sort of via email about the
Yeah.
Galvin back to school night.
Yeah.
If there was a reason. Last year, it went to one night. It shows up on the calendar as two. We're putting it back to one.
Yeah.
Is it just that administration at the Galvin feels like they can sort of deliver what they want to deliver in one night, or?
I think so. I don't want to speak for you, Doug, if you want to jump in on
No,
that. I know you
no,
you
fine.
spoke with Megan.
You didn't miss any, I just didn't want you to know, you didn't miss an email.
I thought it was a good question.
Doug offered to explain it all tonight.
I'll be happy to. So, originally on the calendar, there was 2 days offered for back to school, the 28th and the 29th. Doing it, so Galvin has done it pre-COVID, both ways. They've done it in 2 nights, grades 5 and 6 in the first night and 7 and 8 in the second night. The problem with that is that if you are a parent and you have children and you know, in grade 6 and 8, you're going to have to attend 2 nights to kind of see teachers and get what you need, right? So that can create a bit of a hardship for families. It also creates some difficulty for faculty that are teaching across grade spans. So if I'm a specialist or a special education teacher that is working with students in grade 6 and 8, right? I'm going to have to split nights and be there for two evenings, which is contractually, it says that the night should be 1 night, right? And so what we feel like we can do is we talked to Meg talked to her leadership team, and they feel like that they can do it in 1 night, right? So this isn't any one person's preference. This is just the team looking at how they can kind of best address this to support students and families, parents that have students in multiple grades at Galvin. That's number one. Number two, it is also to accommodate faculty so that they can be there for 1 evening and not need to be there for 2 evenings, so that we can be consistent with what the contract says as well, right? And so it does create some difficulty with parking, but we do have overflow parking, and if people are willing to use it, we're also going to split the evening and, you know, try to do 5 and 6 early and 7, 8 a little bit later. So that's kind of an adjustment, a middle ground that we're looking at. But so I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
So the goal would be to take 2 nights off the calendar, the 28th and the 29th, and just replace it with the 29th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a
very
motion.
helpful, Thank you.
Move that the school committee approve the changes to the previously approved 2022-23 school year calendar as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion or questions for either Doug or Kara? All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll update that on the website. That's
Great.
accessible to
Thank you.
all parents.
Thank you
And
so
we'll
much.
get that out, emailed out.
That's okay.
Poor Christine's agenda.
It's all good. You approved my contract, that's all good.
Whatever you people want to do is fine.
Do you want me to do the payroll warrant?
Payroll, I just wanted to point out, on warrant 48, that check date it's a typo, it should say 5/27. We didn't get paid 2 weeks in a row. It's bi-weekly payroll.
That's why we only have 1.4% left.
Right. Right. So a motion for the payrolls for May.
Okay. Okay. Move that the school committee approve payroll warrants number 46 and number 48 as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously.
And just one gift tonight for the pole vault coach for the track team, $1,500.
Move that the school committee accept with gratitude the donation of $1,500 from the Wakefield Track Boosters Club, a stipend for the pole vault coach for the 2022 spring outdoor season.
Second.
That's it for me.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Wait.
Whoop, I'm sorry.
Voting.
It's a voting vote, not a question. Motion passes unanimously.
We're like, what's
I thought
happening?
it was a pole vaulter in it.
We got pole vault coaches too.
Okay, terrific, thank you. Item 13, subcommittee reports, finance and facilities. Mike?
Sure, so we were talking a little bit tonight about setting up meetings. We haven't started yet. And I talked to Tom a little bit, like I talked to Doug and Christine a little bit about that too. I think the thought is to try to alternate weeks with labor and finance committee, just from a resource perspective. And certainly the labor, we're kind of making some progress, and maybe labor meets, I don't want to steal, are you still the chair, or is it someone else? I can't remember. So the thought is we would do the finance committee meeting, and it would give more time to get the budget ready, maybe on the 14th, which is a Thursday. So we still do it Thursday mornings, but we would do it on the 14th. Does that work, or is there any vacation things that are going to come?
14th of July.
14th of July is correct. Let's open up looking into.
We have the superintendent's conference.
Yeah, I think we should avoid that, the end of that week.
Okay, all right, so maybe we could do that one earlier that week.
Do you think there's
Or the next week.
The following week
Right.
would be.
Or we
nice.
could do it next week
No,
if we
next
had
week.
That would be great.
Would next week be preferable?
No,
No,
they mean the week
no.
after.
Oh,
after the
next, like the
14th.
21st.
Correct.
Okay. Is that?
And I would
okay?
think that also may give time to actually work on closing and opening the budget.
Sure, yeah.
So there may be
That work
actually
okay?
more to report.
Okay. Okay.
Can we compare dates tomorrow, please?
We certainly may.
That'd be
Absolutely. So we're tentatively saying tonight the 21st, but stay tuned.
Correct.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
I'm on that committee now. Did you? know that?
Okay, I was going to say, who's the third one? I couldn't remember who it was. Thanks. 21st works okay for you, as far as you know?
I
As a
think so.
tentative date. Thank you, Tom.
Okay, thank you. Labor and personnel, as we, certainly just to reiterate, we had approved 3 contracts tonight. We'll be approving a few more in order come July 12. Anticipating some substantive progress continuing to be made with custodians, with clerical, with traffic supervisors, and we should also be considering the superintendent's contract as well. So that's the labor report. Student services, Amy.
So we're gonna have our first meeting Thursday morning, this Thursday at, is that the 30th, June 30th, at 9 o'clock. Just gonna be an introduction meeting. Rosie's gonna join. I don't know if you can join, but if you can't, we'll save all the action items for you. No, it's just gonna be a brief introduction, so, and I hope to meet once, maybe in July and August, so when, come September, we can just get right into the work. That's it.
Okay. Policy and communications. Stephen.
Yep, so Policy and Communications has set a not tentative, we actually have an agenda. We have a date to meet next Wednesday on the 6th. We're going to be talking about the handbooks and how we're going to sort of break them out so that we can hopefully go through them and get them back quickly. We'll try and expedite the process. Also, one thing that I think we're going to start talking about is our wellness policy and looking at some updating to that as it relates to some stuff coming out of the Safe Streets Initiative. Kevin previously, sort of on his way out of policy, had shared some language that comes through from the Safe Routes working group from the state. I think we had Judy Crocker here before. And it's just some stuff sort of that's already happening in parallel around things like, making safe pathways for our students to get to school, provided, encouraging them to maybe bike to school and putting out, places for them to store their bikes, which is some of the work that Tim's already doing. So sort of just tightening some things up and encouraging some healthy behaviors as it exists. And it seems like it would dovetail nicely into our existing wellness policy. So we'll be having some conversations around that. And then handbooks. So that's work to come. Work that is existing that we're going to be voting on tonight is a number of weeks ago we put on the table our policy on conflict resolution. It was something that the WEA had asked for us to take a look at. in earnest after our sort of full meeting with them. And so we did. They weren't incorrect. The existing conflict resolution policy was a little bit thin. So we sort of just broke it out a little bit, called out some language, sort of to put framework to what Doug often likes to say, and it is sort of a mantra to solve problems at the lowest level. So there's language in there that talks about sort of caregivers going through to teachers, and then before they go to principals, and then teachers, if there's some conflict there, bringing it to their principal. It draws out a whole framework that hopefully can get us to better resolutions and better sort of problem solving without going immediately to sort of contract language and bringing it to a higher level of intensity. We just feel like it would improve relationships all around and hopefully create a better culture. So that's on the table. It's been there. I think everyone's had a chance to look at it. If there are any questions, I think we have a motion to approve it, and then we can talk about it if anyone feels like it needs to be clarified.
Move that the school committee approve conflict resolution policy number 703E as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none. And so just to reiterate, the policy subcommittee, as it's presently constituted and formally constituted, are on the same page, and the discussions with the members of the WEA were productive, and with the superintendent is in supportive of this policy as well?
Absolutely.
Okay. Motion made, seconded, and discussed. All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Tom, can I ask one question? And you and I talked a little bit about this as far as the liaison roles. So more for Amy, I'll say, I'll continue on CPAC until I continue on forever, or if someone else wants to take it on with student services. So I'll just keep doing it until I hear differently.
Okay.
I hope I do. Thank you.
Well, before we leave policy, I think it's appropriate for us to lay on the table the student handbooks. So we officially have that in record, thereby empowering the policy subcommittee to do its thing. Fair enough?
Yep.
Fair enough.
Okay. Amy, would you like to
Sure, I'm gonna wait.
craft such a...
Yeah, let's go. Move that the school committee lay on the table 4 handbooks: the Doyle, the elementary, the Galvin Middle School, and the Wakefield High School, as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. This now empowers because as we know, subcommittees have no independent power whatsoever. Everything has to generate from the work that we sort of assign as a group. So, excellent. Okay. To sort of go back to Mike's point, I had yet to react to the vacancies around the liaison positions. So we'll get to that in due course. Okay, item 14, future dates and agenda items. Our next meeting is Tuesday, July 12th, as we've discussed here or there in the last 10 minutes. I have gotten into the habit with Doug and Judy to put sort of as item B under 14, hopefully that may be useful either to the committee or to the public, with items that we know will be on there. That's sort of a running tally to keep us a little in check with some of the larger topics that may be on. So as item B speaks to, can anticipate discussion and vote on a couple more successor employment union contracts, the superintendent's contract, as spoke earlier, and a report on Acceleration Academy, and other things that we've now discussed tonight will be added there. So,
Tom, should we assume there's an executive session before that?
oh, I would absolutely assume such a thing, yes. At least one. We will have at least one executive session between now and July 12th.
Thanks for asking, Mike.
Oh, no, trying to think.
Anyone available around, Next Monday, July 4th, seems to be open. Not a busy day in town, anyways. Any other items from the committee to be brought up to, for future agenda items or topics? Okay, moving on. Item number 15, school committee comments, going around the table. Kevin, start at this end. Kevin Fontanella.
Sorry. First now. Kara, thank you very much for introducing me to the curriculum directors for the last month and a half. It's been great talking with them and getting abreast on all the things like we got presented today. So it's been really good, and hope to meet with you guys again in August, right before the school year starts. Very excited about the contracts that have been approved today, and hopefully we'll keep going. And yeah, just one anecdote. The last day of school at the Dole Bear, I ended up at a pool party that day, and the parents were asking me if it was normal for the kids to be showing that much emotion. And I was like, I teach high school, I have no idea. But
no emotion whatsoever.
There's dead emotion on the last day of school. But I noticed, like, obviously at the fourth grade, fourth graders moving and everyone's crying. But when I walked around with my second grader, like everyone was crying. It was a little weird. And the parents didn't know how to deal with it, and they were like, "Why is my daughter grabbing onto Miss Puccio's leg?" And we talked about it, and I said, "Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of shows that there's definitely some undercurrent of emotion that I don't think is normal." And I have no idea. I just don't remember seeing that. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because, I think that it illustrates, how much we've come through in the last year. And I think that seeing the emotional bond that the kids had with their teachers, really not wanting to let them go, and seeing the connection. They weren't crying because I think they were necessarily excited to be graduated. I think they were really upset that they were leaving their teacher. A lot of them, and it really shows the depth of the connection that I think you saw there. So I thought that was, pretty emotional. A lot of us as parents were just like, "Wow, this is." That's it, Mike.
I didn't have just wishing everybody a good start to summer now. Hope you get a chance to enjoy it a little bit. But that was all I had for tonight.
I can answer Kevin's question and say, yes, that emotion was everywhere at the Woodville. And I did see it with teachers. I also saw it with students, if I could count the number of parents that I heard. But you're going to see them at camp. They're kids were just sad to leave their friends. And the parents were just like, you're going to see them on Monday. It's again. But kids were, it was a lot. It was from just across the board, everywhere from K to fourth. Fourth maybe a little more intensely because they were leaving, the place that they had been. But it was a big day, and it was a great day, just because there it is again, just the community that gets engendered by everyone sort of who works through the district. It kind of comes full circle from all the retirees and everything that they've put into it. You see it just come out in the kids and the kids that are produced and the way that they feel about their spaces. It's awesome. And it's great to sort of be a part of it. So yes, emotion is everywhere. It's great to see. Thank you to administration, to Doug, to Kara, to Christine, to the nurses. As we come out on, we talk about stop testing for COVID and just the space that we're at. It's amazing how you sort of kept this landscape level across just a myriad of circumstances, ups, downs. It's crazy. I don't know how you kept your sanity, because so many around us struggle with it. So thank you, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, my family, everybody I know. It's something that it's amazing. Two more things. I'll try and be brief. Desi had a meeting today. Part of what they talked about was dyslexia in elementary schools, and how they opened up for public comment if people's belief in screening processes and how it should be at least twice a year. And then on top of that, I also thought that reading materials for language learners should be in their first language as they try and sort of tackle phonics, giving them materials that remain in their first language. There was some benefit there. So if people feel like voicing concern, that portion of their policy will be open for public comment. And last, I would just give a plug for Brian Fox and the 4th of July committee. They are really stuck for volunteers. They could use a lot of sign holders. I hear they're paying $30 for kids if they want to hold a sign. I'm not saying, maybe just being in the parade and having your friends see you march is enough. But my 7-year-old definitely is looking for that $30. And then I think for people that want to, help out with the horses, that's like another 50, and not really help out, just like pick up their, what they leave behind. And that's it. So.
Can I just jump in? I apologize. When the retirement thing, I did mean to mention that, I have no kids in the Wakefield Public Schools now. It's all done for me, and it's been an amazing, amazing ride. And these are emotional because these people touch my kids' lives, and it will go by in a blink. For though Tom's getting close to the end now, it's as much as it's a nightmare sometimes. Appreciate it, embrace it. It's we all remember our grade school teachers, and your kids are all in that now. So. Ride it and have a blast. It's an amazing journey, so enjoy it. Thanks.
So yes, there was tears at Walton and Galvin. Not necessarily my kids, but but yeah. So I think that just goes to say how close the community has come together the past 2 years. Just want to thank Amy for coming out public. I'm always going to thank anyone who wants to come during public participation. It's not easy to sit up there and 10 people staring blankly at you. But she did bring up her daughter's civics project, which is something 7th grade extended math, and that email only went to incoming 7th graders. So I think if this is the direction the district is going to go in, it should be presented at a future school committee meeting. I'm also not really happy about the change. I think we're leaving a portion of our students, albeit small, we're not giving them the rich and challenging curriculum that we're saying in our mission statement at the opening of every meeting. So I don't mean to bring this down, but so yeah, if we could get that and they could explain it to the whole district, the change, that would be helpful. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Kevin?
I thought you were gonna go ahead. Don't know if I was listening to you, Amy.
Sorry.
Just really briefly, at work, one of the quotes we like is "Define success by the impact you've had on others." And just in reference to the 6 individuals who retired, I think they can feel like they had a very successful career because their impact on others was significant. So I want to thank all of them again and wish them all well. Thank Judy for setting up the reception. That was great. And Kara setting up the reception. It's a nice event, and so hopefully, again, we're able to continue that into the future. Just to take a moment to recognize those that have dedicated their careers here and are off to other things and enjoying their well-deserved retirement. Thank you.
My turn. Okay. No, I just wanted to echo again what with the retirees. It was lovely meeting her in person and everything. I wish the others could have joined. But I also want to thank Kara and the curriculum directors. I was really impressed by the work you guys have been doing this year. It was really great to see, and I know we could have sat here all night and discussed everything, so that was great. Wanted to thank the Dahlberg School for the 4th grade moving on ceremony. There were lots of tears, including mine. My kids did not cry, but they were very emotional and cranky after. And the Dahlberg just has done so many amazing things. The Dahlberg PTO for the 4th grade, moving on all year long and doing special things for the kids, pizza parties, and now that we can all be together again, and it was wonderful. So Dahlberg PTO and Dahlberg School has been amazing. And then Dahlberg Kindergarten also put on a little kindergarten graduation as well, which was wonderful to see. And it's just nice having all these events back together again and after all these years. And yeah, I think emotions are high because of that, being back together again and having that camaraderie in the classroom. And just as a little bit, Kevin, to your point, your 2nd graders have not had a normal school year. This was their first normal school year. So I think that's another reason why that attachment in the motion was high for those second graders as well. This was the first normal one. Kind of normal. Kind of normal, right?
New normal?
New normal, yeah.
So I know it only seems like a mere matter of minutes that we've been together, but it's been a little over 5 hours. So I'm going to dispense with saying anything else, other than thank you all for your comments, and I couldn't agree more with each of you. Motion, is there a motion to adjourn?
Let's hope there is.
Let's hope it passes.
Move that the school committee adjourn its meeting of Tuesday, June 28, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Do you need a pen, Karen?
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Have a great evening, everyone.
Oh, the first one's usually down.